My fellow Americans, let me begin by congratulating the team at NASA and our brave astronauts on the successful launch of Artemis 2. It was quite something. It will be traveling further than any manned rocket has ever flown and will very substantially pass the moon, go around it, and come back home from a distance that has never been done before. It's amazing.
Roger, roll pitch. Integrity, AMT high.
Due to that suit being pressurized and expanded, as well as the umbilicals being
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is
How long's he got then? A very happy Sunday morning to one and all. Mark Dolan with you until 10 a.m. Starmer on the brink. How much did he know about Peter Manasseh's failure to pass security vetting? Did he mislead Parliament? Did he know about this problem when he didn't answer questions at PMQs this Wednesday? We will bring you all of the details and dimensions of this extraordinary political bombshell. I'll be speaking to the biggest names in the world of politics and journalism. It's pretty clear that Starmer is in trouble. How long's he got? We'll be getting a professional verdict on that one. I'll be tackling the issue in a special Dolan's Dispatch at 9 a.m. But my question to you this morning is a simple one. Is the game up for Keir Starmer? My phone number is 03444991000 and the brilliant Rory is taking your calls. Text the word talk and your message to 87222 or leave us a voice note because we know you're busy on a Sunday morning. Is the game up for Keir Starmer? Now, I'm delighted to say that you can hear the show on DAB+, in-app and online, or you can watch us. This is a TV programme, so head to YouTube, search Talk and Up We Pop. Neha is directing our TV output. Rory's on the phones. Engineer Dave is pressing the buttons. And our glorious leader this morning is a man that has a talent on both sides of the microphone. Talk star Phil Dave. So we discussed at our breakfast meeting during the show. Of course, that started at 2 a.m. because we're very committed to this product. Look, I've pulled the fader down, Dave, and the music's still on. I mean, seriously, we need to put 10p in the meter, don't we, and start again. Phil Dave's favourite question for today, because we always think, what is the big question? Phil's question is, how long has Starmer got? Which I think is a good question. My question is Is the game up for Sir Keir Starmer? So I'll let you answer either of those because I think they're both outstanding. 0344 499 1000. I'm going to be joined in the studio by one of the most respected public relations experts in the world. He'll be talking about the imaging of this, the optics, and he'll be answering those two questions. How long has Starmer got? Is it game over for the PM? But let's have a look at the front pages of the papers first of all. The Mail on Sunday. The clock is ticking. Keir. Kemi launches blistering attack on weak, lazy and incompetent PM as Mandelson crisis threatens to force him out of number 10. Starmer is not fit to run the country, says Christian Calgi, who is their senior political correspondent. Sir Keir Starmer is today branded a man unfit to run the country who has lost the moral right to govern after the Peter Mandelson vetting scandal. In an excoriating verdict on the Prime Minister, Tory leader Kemi Badenoch also condemns him as a PM consumed by his own survival, who was putting national security at risk. And with Sir Keir fighting for his political life, she renews her call for him to do the decent thing and resign. Exclusive poll on the front page of the Mail on Sunday. Sussexes must stop cashing in on royal titles. Voters declare. Well, that is the right verdict, but I wouldn't hold my breath because the truth is that the only thing of value that Harry and Meghan have are their royal credentials. There's nothing else. There's no talent there. Meghan Markle is a horrible actress, a dreadful TV host, an unimaginably bad cook that would give you gastroenteritis if you had her flour sprinkles. And what about Harry? What's Prince Harry's great talent? He won the womb lottery. That was it. His mother was Diana. His father was King Charles. That's about as good as it gets. Sunday Telegraph. Starmer accused of Mandelson cover-up. PM insists number 10 was unaware of failed vetting, despite officials knowing weeks before. Also front page of the Telegraph. Trump, Iran will not blackmail us over Hormuz. And Rachel Reeves looks at war bonds to fund defence spending. Rachel Reeves is considering issuing war bonds to pay for increased defence spending. Members of the public and financial institutions would be able to buy bonds to raise money that would be ring-fenced for national security. Why have we got to buy bonds? Why are we paying for that as well, Phil Dave? Why have we got to pay for everything? We've got the highest tax burden since the war. And can I talk to you about tax, by the way? Because they'll have you believe that you get like 12.5 grand tax-free. That's your sort of allowance, isn't it? They'll have you believe that then there's the lower rate that goes up to about, what, 25, 30 grand, 35. Then you get into the higher rate. I think it kind of tops out at 45%. So they'll have you believe that you don't pay more than about 45% in your tax. Well, that's a complete lie. Because then when you go to the supermarket and you pay for goods, or if you buy a car, or if you buy a suit, or if you pay for anything pretty basic, you have VAT. So that's an extra 20% on everything that you buy. That's a tax. And then you fill your car with petrol or diesel, which is, I think you'll find, taxed. Everything is taxed. And then you have this thing called inflation, where the price of things goes up. And that difference is paid by you and I. That is another tax. It's all taxed. So most of us are actually paying 50, 60, 70% tax in relation to the money that we've got in our pocket. We don't even keep half of it. And now the Chancellor, Rachel from Accounts, surely the worst Chancellor we've ever had, wants us to buy bonds so she can invest in the military. It's not complicated, Chancellor. Cut public spending. That is the elephant in the room. The welfare bill now exceeds the tax take of this country. Let that sink in. Because let me put it out there at 6:09 on a Sunday morning. Could I dare to speak on your behalf? May I have that permission? Please shout at the radio and the telly now. Can I just for a moment, may I speak on your behalf? Good. Thank you for that. I'm going to speak on your behalf. I'm going to say that for the vast majority of you, your lives are tough. You are working hard. You've got bills. You're dealing with inflation. You're terrified of filling your car with petrol. You're terrified to switch the heater on because of the energy bills. People are struggling. Everyone is struggling. The economy is absolutely in the toilet. And therefore, Rachel from Accounts needs to understand that when we go about our daily lives, we make tough choices, don't we? We make tough choices about whether we can afford a holiday. We make tough choices about whether to buy that rather expensive pair of jeans from Zara and find ourselves heading ignominiously down to Primark instead because it's a little cheaper. We have to make tough economic choices probably 10 times a day, don't we? And we have to prioritise the rent, the mortgage, the gas bill, the council tax. That's what we prioritise. And what comes at the bottom of this will be holidays, a new car, clothing, going out for a bite to eat, entertainment. All of that is at the bottom of the list. Our emotional and human needs come last. Why? Because on a daily basis, you and I make tough choices and we make sacrifices. That is something that this government is not doing. They've got the greatest privilege on the planet, which is they are the custodians of our money. We hand them our cash, which, as I've just pointed out, is not 30 or 40% of our pay packet. It is 60 or 70%, because I'm including inflation, which is as a product of government policies and which is a tax on everyone. And I'm talking about the VAT on all the goods that we purchase. I'm talking about the other services that we buy, the providers of which are paying crazy amounts of tax. So we are taxed to the hilt. Any economy where more than half of the money in your pocket goes to the state is a basket case. Any economy where more than half of your cash goes to the government is a failed state. It ain't working. They should be able to take care of all of our needs on less than half of our money. More than half of our cash. You wouldn't do that deal with an agent, would you? If you were a rock star or an actor, you wouldn't give your agent more than half of your income. That's my red line. And of course, it's been crossed by Rachel from Accounts, whose numbers don't add up. So thank you for letting me dare to speak on your behalf. But you're having a tough time. I know that because I live in the real world. And I talk to people and I'm on the radio and you call me and you message me and you leave voice notes and we talk. And I'm in a better position than most people, but I've got the debts as well. I have the credit cards and the mortgage and all that, so I know. I know how it feels. Everyone is having to make tough choices. And the Chancellor and this wretched, egregious government and all. We're talking about Peter Mandelson here. Who cares about Peter blinking Mandelson? It's a sideshow. The Peter Mandelson story is an example of Keir Starmer's wicked dishonesty and duplicity. I wouldn't trust that man as far as I could throw him. So it's a horrible, horrible insight into that man's lack of ethics and his slippery nature. Fine. So Mandelson tells us that Starmer is a wrong 'un. But that's not really the bigger story. I mean, I think you and I knew that already. It's not surprising. Old Mandelson didn't need vetting, and neither did Starmer. Neither of them are fit for high office. But in a way, it's a sideshow, because what's the bigger story? The bigger story is a hollowed out defence, so we're unsafe. The bigger story is the boats. 70,000 illegals since Sir Keir smashed the gang Starmer got into office. Energy prices, the lack of supply because of the madness of net zero. That is the real story. Not drilling for oil and gas on our own shores during an energy crisis. Well, I've had boffins on the show going, well, let me explain to you, sir, that we actually wouldn't just use that oil and gas. It wouldn't bring energy bills down. Well, I think you'll find if you allowed Shell and all of those other gigantic energy companies to drill, baby, drill, then they will be paying taxation on the income from the sale of oil and gas, which we would get. It would go straight into the exchequer, which might help with the enormous amount of borrowing costs that we now face in this country. Over £100 billion on the interest alone of government debt. So my point here is that old Rachel from Accounts, who is surely the worst Chancellor we've ever had, she wants us to buy these bonds to pay for defence spending. Well, we buy bonds every day, Phil Dave, because we pay our taxes. Every time that you go to the supermarket and you buy your goods and there's VAT on your Jaffa cakes, right, that is a bond that you're buying. You're giving money. You're investing money in the government. What a bad investment, by the way. What a shocking investment that is. When you suffer inflation, that is paying a bond to the government, because what they do is print money, and that causes inflation. So we don't get free cash like during COVID. They said, oh, we're giving you money. You're giving us no money. We'll be paying it back via inflation for many years to come. This is a government that cannot live within its means. It gets over half of our pay packet. It doesn't matter what you do. You can be a bricklayer, a bus driver, any noble profession. You could be a top banker. You can be on 25 grand a year or 2 million a year. Either way, you're being ripped off, because your taxes don't even touch the sides when it comes to the cost of net zero, illegal immigration, and a profligate welfare state. So rather than getting us to buy bonds and giving you yet more money that you can't be trusted with, Rachel, what I suggest you do is do what the rest of us do, which is make some tough decisions. Cut your cloth accordingly. Because what do? We skip that bite to eat on a Friday night at Pizza Express or Francamanca. Francamanca! Okay? We skip that latte. Yes, we do, actually. We do skip the lattes because they cost a fortune now. Have you seen the price of a cup of coffee? And we skip that trip to Greg's, and we skip the holiday, and we skip the new car, and we skip this and we skip that, because we know that we have to live within our means, because we don't have a magic money tree and we can't get anyone to buy bonds off of us. So I think, given that you and I are having not an easy time romantically, romantically, that's a Freudian slip. Hello, economically and romantically, my heart is broken. Even if we are struggling financially and economically, we make the tough decision. We have a government that will not do the same. Wake up, Rachel from Accounts. Sunday Mirror now, exclusive. Liz fills her boots. Truss is taking the piece. Brexiteer ex-MP and PM who wrecked Britain went on ski jolly to boost EU relations. Shameless Liz Truss enjoyed a ski jolly to build bridges with the EU despite being an arch Brexiteer. The dire ex-PM was joined by other Tory has-beens. Labour chair Anna Turley said she's constantly talking our country down. Yeah, isn't that what Rachel Reeves did for the first 2 years of her stint in Number 11? Liz Truss, I believe, Phil Dave, is in the building later. Is that right? I think she's joining the brilliant Alex Phillips at 10 a.m. Isn't it funny how the Sunday Mirror, which is such an irrelevant paper, can't even think of writing a headline about the Prime Minister, of which they're so fond, who is mired in a political scandal. They've decided to do front page news about someone that isn't the Prime Minister of this country, someone that's actually an opposition MP. That's how pathetic this paper. Why can't the Sunday Mirror have a front page headline which is 2 words, we're sorry? Because actually anybody, any newspaper or any public figure that encouraged the population to vote Labour at the last election needs to apologise. Because yes, the Tories were terrible, but after 18 months of Starmer and Labour, the country is far, far worse. And they're not fit for purpose. Economy in the toilet. Energy supply, non-existent. Highest energy bills in the developed world. The highest youth unemployment. Inflation. Wokery in our public institutions. An equalities secretary that still will not acknowledge the ruling of the Supreme Court that there are just 2 sexes. If you have a Willy Winkle, you're a boy. If you have a Mew Mew, you're a lady. It's not complicated. I know it, you know it, but they don't. Do me a favour. Sunday Express, PM betraying our heroes to boost EU reset. And last but not least, the Sunday Times. Mandelson top client linked to China military. We'll get to that story shortly. Plus, Lloyd Webber, Andrew Lloyd Webber, I'm a recovering alcoholic. Surprising story that. One of the country's most successful composers reveals that he's had a problem with the drink. Maybe it's the PTSD of listening to some of his musicals. Who knows? Folks, it is 19 minutes past 6. And I actually want to thank Christian Calgie at the Old Mail on Sunday, because Phil, Dave, I think we might have our best question of the day so far. I think it's really good to workshop, Dave, what the question is while you're on air, because we've got how long has Starmer got? Is the game up for Starmer? Which I think are both elite level questions. But what about this one, which is inspired by today's Mail on Sunday? Starmer is not fit to run the country. So maybe I could ask you that. Is Starmer unfit to run the country? This is Talk.
And the expenses they waste, millions on cabs, on biscuits even. You know, when you look at the yearly bill of the BBC, it's just waste.
So they spend something like £19 million. That's about $30 million a year on taxes.
God.
On cabs.
Kev, did you used to work? You used to work at the BBC.
I've worked at.
He milked it, yeah.
What
don't
was
worry
it
about
like
that.
with the
He's milked
expenses
it.
there? Could you?
Well, I'll tell you.
Did you have a time of your life?
No, it is a licence to print personal money, I'll tell you that.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Is Starmer fit to run the country? You're listening to Talk Breakfast. It is 6:23. Why should all these lazy people on benefits be getting free money, free car, free everything for staying in bed until all hours of the day, says Sharon. I'll get to more of your feedback very shortly. Live in the studio, one of the most respected public relations experts in the world and political commentator, Piers Pottinger. Good morning, Piers.
Morning, Mark.
Is Keir Starmer fit to be Prime Minister?
No, clearly not.
He's done nothing wrong. He wasn't told that Mandelson had failed security vetting.
He's the
Nothing
Prime
to see here,
Minister. He's the Prime Minister at the moment of this country. And the extraordinary thing is, he chose Mandelson. Don't forget this. Let's go back to he knew Mandelson had at very best a dodgy reputation. He knew about him twice having to step down as a cabinet minister in disgrace. Mm-hmm. He knew about his connections with Epstein, maybe not as how close they were, but he knew of them.
Any connection should surely kill the deal.
And he knew he had a PR firm called Global Counsel, which had very major clients, and also Mandelson had connections with Oleg Deripaska, a Russian oligarch, and was said to be close to the Chinese. Now that's the real point, because it turns out that Global Counsel's biggest client, paying them over £1 million a year in fees, was a Chinese company, which of course was owned by the Chinese government and has since been embroiled in a very nasty business over the acquisition of a British company, which Global Counsel was brought in to try and smooth over. Yeah. Now, the Chinese government, through it, the major Chinese companies around the world, spread very generous sums of money to many PR companies. I know this firsthand. And if you take on any of these clients, you think, oh, good, a lovely big fee, and you don't ever have to do very much other than try and say that these companies are marvellous, when in fact they are just vehicles for the Chinese government. And any smart PR firm wouldn't go near these clients. And unfortunately, it shows again the greed of Mandelson taking them on.
Completely unethical.
Completely. But let's go back to Starmer. First of all, it is inconceivable that David Lammy, for example, as Foreign Secretary, knowing the problems around Mandelson, wouldn't have actually asked about the vetting, because if you're going to appoint a controversial figure, you would want to make sure you had your ducks in a row, and therefore the question of vetting became extremely important. And it is inconceivable to me that not only Starmer but also Lammy did not ask about whether the vetting had gone the right way or not. Inconceivable. And if they didn't ask, that is a total dereliction of duty. Either way, whatever the real truth is, and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens on Tuesday when Ollie Robbins gives evidence to the Select Committee, although he hasn't yet formally agreed to appear, by the way.
Right.
And it may well be that he doesn't appear. I'm sure Mandelson would like this as cleared up as quickly as possible. And Emily Thornberry, the chairman of this committee, is from all the things she's been saying have been very negative about the civil service, and she will obviously be on the attack with Robbins, and he may decide that it's not in his interest to appear at this juncture, because clearly there's some shenanigans going on. But the real point is, whatever the truth is, whatever the true scenario, it still means Starmer is unfit to be Prime Minister.
Well,
if he didn't know, he should have known. If he's covered up, which is even worse, this whole affair, and it looks as though Antonia Romeo has known about this for a long time.
Yeah, two weeks I think she was sitting on that story.
Yes, and why didn't, again, I believe that to be inconceivable she didn't tell the Prime Minister. And going back to Robbins, when he knew about the vetting going the way it had, I think it's inconceivable he didn't talk to anyone. Starmer, of course, who's very slippery and very semantic, he says he didn't talk to any minister. That doesn't mean he didn't talk to a special advisor or a chief of staff, someone like Morgan McSweeney. And the other thing that clouds the water here is that Mandelson, right from the start, Starmer keeps talking about the due process. This was a very unusual appointment. It wasn't a civil service appointment, so the due process, which actually applies to civil service appointments, is different. This was a political appointment out of the blue, a man picked single-handedly by Starmer. Now, he can blame it on all his staff, something he says he'd never do, but he's done. As much as he likes, but he's Prime Minister and the buck stops with him.
Most definitely. He's also taking us for fools if he thinks that somehow it was almost against his wishes that Mandelson should become the ambassador. It's clear Number 10 and Starmer wanted him to get the job come what may.
He gave him his full support. He selected him. It was his appointment.
And it was Ollie Robbins who did his bidding and got the deal across the line for Number 10 and for the PM.
Absolutely. And
That's
point
what civil servants are supposed to do.
As I keep making the point, it was a political appointment, not a proper civil service appointment through the normal diplomatic channel. But it was still, as it was an ambassadorial appointment, the initial responsibility of the Foreign Secretary, David Calamity Lammy. And I cannot believe he didn't ask about the vetting of such an important appointment, because he has to sign off on it before the Prime Minister. That is the procedure, and if we go back to his wonderful due process that he likes to talk about, if the due process was followed, why didn't Lammy ask about the vetting? What's the point of having vetting if no one asks about how it's gone? I mean, I'm sorry, it's not credible. This is just not believable. The British people are not going to fall for this. The Labour Party squirming around Starmer because they know we've got local elections coming up. They're terrified already about the results there, and no one at the moment wants to kick him out before the elections. They want to wait till afterwards. But then you're going to see all these people at war: Burnham, Rayner, Miliband, Streeting, and the Labour Party will start tearing itself apart, as it's so often done in the past.
Most definitely, except this time in government. Briefly, Piers, is it possible that Sir Keir Starmer is lying that he did not know that Mandelson had failed security vetting?
I really hope it isn't I really hope it isn't the case that
it can't
lying.
Be ruled out.
I don't think you can rule it out, because when people are fighting for their future, their own career, as Starmer is at the moment, they are capable of saying all kinds of things.
Because I just don't know how it wouldn't have got back to the boss, even if Ollie Robbins, under his obligations and the law, cannot run to the PM and say Mandy's failed the vetting, which is my understanding that as the chief civil servant at the Foreign Office, he wasn't able to do that because the vetting process is confidential.
Yeah.
Okay, that I'll accept that. But how it didn't get back to Starmer, I think, is a complete mystery, given that David Maddox, the political editor of the independent newspaper, reached out to Number 10 in September of last year, and he messaged some of the team at Number 10 via WhatsApp saying, it's my understanding, this was in September of last year, not Tuesday, it's our understanding at the Independent that Mandelson failed vetting. Can you give us a response to this? We're also hearing it was China links, not Epstein, as it pertained to. They reply that all the due diligence was followed. So he gets a reply. It's then front page news of The Independent the next day. Now, you know as well as I do as a public relations expert, there's a team at Number 10 who scour every inch of every newspaper every day. So are you telling me that it escaped Number 10's attention that the Independent was splashing on the story that Mandy had failed vetting, and that somehow that doesn't get back to the Prime Minister?
Of course not.
I mean, most Prime Ministers also read the papers every day.
I think, let's be clear, the vetting...
Maybe Starmer can't read.
Well, first of all, let's be clear, the vetting process is confidential, as it must be, because of the depth in which it goes, and that's understandable. The results are not confidential. Otherwise, if they were, what's the point of the vetting procedure?
And that's what Jack Straw has said. And Jack Straw is the former Home Secretary who drew up the changes to the rules around how much government can know about a civil service investigation into a potential public servant. So Jack Straw has said that it's impossible that Ollie Robbins cannot say that he wasn't allowed to tell the Prime Minister. Jack Straw says that Robbins was entitled to tell the Prime Minister.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, then why didn't he?
Well, we don't know that he didn't.
To protect the Prime Minister, probably.
We don't know that he didn't, and we don't know that he didn't say something to someone. And I suspect if he does appear on Tuesday, it might emerge that Morgan McSweeney knew.
And if Morgan McSweeney knows, who is Starmer's second brain, then surely the boss knows as well. So much to get through, folks. Is Keir Starmer fit to be Prime Minister? This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Let's kick off with a voice note. Is Starmer fit to run the country? Here is Boz.
Morning, Mark. The breakfast team, travelling Boz here. Your key question is Starmer fit to run the country? I think the answer to that is no, and he hasn't been fit from day one. He's 21 months it is now, I think, roughly, they've been in. The country's gone backwards. It's a burning policy of destroy everything and let the next lot sort it out. The problem is there's no one fit enough to take Starmer's place, and he's a complete buffoon. There's no personality in the man. He's like, and look behind him. What a squad that is. You wouldn't want them helping you at all. All of them. They go from thick to thicker. They don't know what they're doing in their own departments. Sort it out. It's a mess. Have a good show.
A brilliant voice note. Your reaction, Piers Pottinger?
Yeah, well, I mean, he's right. He's been appalling from day one. I don't think I've ever seen a Prime Minister do so much damage to the country so fast. And it's getting worse. And what is really unforgivable is the question of defence. The duty of the Prime Minister, the first and foremost duty is the defence of the realm. And he has completely failed in that area. And he's now an international laughingstock as well as a domestic laughingstock. I mean, when he went... He ran off to Paris as quickly as he could during this Mandelson furore. Thought, I'll run for cover, his normal thing. And he goes over to Paris for a summit with Macron. Well, if you're having a summit, you need to have something to say. And he had nothing to say, clearly. They were trying to talk about how they could help open the Straits of Hormuz. And, of course, at this meeting of all these leaders, it was only... Macron, Maloney and Starmer. All the others were on by Zoom. Starmer didn't need to go there. He just did because he wanted to get away from Britain.
Of course he did.
And it was so pathetic. And what did this... and Macron, who's a completely lame duck president, completely gone in the eyes of the French public and has no power. It was a nonsensical meeting, achieving nothing again. And
two bald men fighting over a comb.
Yeah, that's what it was like. Yeah.
It's crazy, isn't it? Let's take a call. Michael is in England's second city of Birmingham. Hello, Mike.
Yeah, hi, how are you doing? Can you hear me okay?
Loud and clear. Michael, what do you think? Is your Prime Minister fit to run your country?
Well, I don't consider him my Prime Minister, but I get what you mean, and no, he isn't. What's been said already, I've worked in offices and I've worked around security vetting too, right? And to say that word doesn't get out about this is just incomprehensible nonsense. Let's not get done in the process about this. Oh, he can't tell me this, that, and the other. People talk all the time. I mean, you work in a work environment too. People gossip about each other all the time, right? You know, so-and-so's getting a divorce, so-and-so this. Oh, by the way, he's failed his security vetting. That's the very least it would be.
Well, Michael, I'm so glad you called me about that. In the normal workplace, this would be called out as a sham within seconds. And Michael, I've got to ask you, with your life experience and your brain on your shoulders, is it conceivable that the press department of Number 10 are alerted to this story by a journalist in September of last year, and that somehow it doesn't get back to the boss?
1,000,000,000% not. What needs to happen here, and I hope somebody can do this, is this goes into, you know, this is about security vetting, but it's just about A, integrity, but B, what these people do, and you've mentioned a few names there, they need to be hauled before some sort of commission, swearing on oath that they're telling the truth on pain of perjury and criminal charges if you're lying. Put it this way, I would pay for Starmer out of my own pocket to have a polygraph test about this, and I'm serious about that. Because, look, the other thing is, if security vetting isn't worth it, if you don't take what it is, loads of people in normal life that want government jobs fail security vetting. Does that mean they've got a class action then? That they couldn't be failed because they can just appoint people without it whenever they want to? I know exactly how it goes down, and this is absolute nonsense. It's a lie. It's just a lie. That's all there is to it.
And so, Michael, do you think, therefore, that the Prime Minister did know all along that Mandelson had failed vetting?
Of course, 1,000,000,000%. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, if he wants me as a British citizen to believe his version of events, he's taking me for a bigger mug than the people who voted for him.
And, of course, this, therefore, Michael, is a Prime Minister that has lost the dressing room. If you honestly think that you're being lied to by the Prime Minister, then it's over, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I don't think he's got any integrity, but I think he's kind of like reveling in this. I think he counts himself as a new sort of Stalinist without the pogroms, who, you know, in that sort of environment, they twist facts. They'll tell you Tuesday is Wednesday and you're supposed to go along with it. They'll tell you it's 9 o'clock when it's 3 o'clock and you're supposed to go along with it. That's exactly the world he likes to inhabit. And this is another example of this. He expects us all to believe this. It's like living in the movie The Death of Stalin. It's ridiculous.
Well, your reaction to what Michael has had to say. Stay with us, Michael, for a moment, if you can. Piers, the Prime Minister's lost a dressing room. Yeah. Michael is convinced that his Prime Minister, or he's not his really Prime Minister, but is lying to him. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's possible. But again, I think the major issue is he appointed Mandelson. It was his choice. He knew he was a controversial figure at the very least. It now turns out through the vetting procedure, he was also a security risk. And you cannot have our ambassador to the United States as a security risk. And to appoint someone who turns out to be that is an offence so severe that alone means he should resign. I mean, there is no question at all that that Starmer must resign next week. I cannot see on any basis how he can stay, however he tries to put this across, however he tries to spin it. He's lost 2 chiefs of staff already. He sacked the senior civil servant overnight, the day this news broke. He sacks the senior civil servant in the Foreign Office overnight. Extraordinary behaviour. He's also lost, by the way, the communications director, who spoke to the journalist at The Independent, Tim Allen. He's gone. He only lasted a few months. But all the key people around him have gone. One wonders why.
How can? Well, it's a good question, and I understand he'd like to get rid of Romeo too, but he's got rid of too many civil servants already, because she sat on the story for 2 weeks at least. But here's a quick question before I come back to Michael. How can the Prime Minister be forced to resign if it can't be proved he knew?
Because he said in public that he'd gone through that Mandelson had gone through the vetting process.
Not just in public, in Parliament.
He said it in Parliament, and he said it in a press conference. He'd been cleared.
Yes, but he hadn't willed for. That's pedantic. That's to do with the ministerial statement, the ministerial code. And Hansard. That's probably not enough of a smoking gun to bring down the Prime Minister. He could argue, if it can't be proved he knew, he did not willingly mislead Parliament.
But I'm not saying that he will necessarily have to resign on the misleading of Parliament. What I'm saying is the mere appointment of Mandelson has proven to be catastrophic and disastrous.
Right.
And he appointed someone who was a security risk.
So the politics of this does for him rather than the legality.
Yes. Don't forget, civil servants are not elected by this country. They are. He is an elected person to run this country and he has failed everyone who's elected him.
Good to know. Now, Michael, here's a question for you before I let you go. I'm sure you're a busy man this morning on a Sunday. Is Starmer gonna try and style this one out? Is he gonna make it to the May elections, do you think, Michael?
Yes, I do. I think he, as I said before, I think he'll inhabit his world. He'll stick to his version of the truth. And that's exactly how he operates. He's going nowhere voluntarily. This won't get rid of him.
And how do you see it playing out, Michael? I mean, he'll be gone by summer anyway, won't he? This is all academic. It's a case of if not when, wouldn't you say?
I think he's going to be difficult to shift. I have a feeling that the May elections might not be as bad for Labour as people think. I hope they are,
right.
but I don't think they will be. And I think he might get off the hook that way. It might well be that people like Rayner and Burnham and whoever else can front up just have to winkle him out by force almost. You know, not physical, but do whatever procedures they can. Because I don't think he'll go over this or May.
And Michael, before I let you go, what do you want for the country?
I'm 64 years of age and I'm flying off to Vietnam this morning, and I've in two minds whether or not to come back because it's as bad as I've ever known it. It's what you said before about the tax burden. I've never been one to moan about tax, but this tax is far too much. But it's also who's paying it. I live and walk around Birmingham. I'll be careful what I say, but I see children with 2, 3, 4, 5, people with 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 children. I'd love to know what their secret on affording this is, because I'm struggling to make ends meet, even though I'm going to NAM. I'm living just to keep a roof over my head with very little luxuries, and I get paid a decent amount. I don't know how people do it, and it's just too much. I don't like the boats. I don't like the wokeness. It's a terrible place at the moment.
Well, I know it's been calculated, Michael, that you mentioned number of children. I think that if a single parent that has 3 children in the UK is on benefits, they're going to turn over around £4,000 a month tax-free. Now, you'd have to earn 65k in a job of work to pull in that kind of money. And just by having 3 kids and no job, that's your income.
Yeah, and the other thing is that I tried to get another job to, do 2 jobs and do my bit to make ends meet. And, you know, I lost nearly half, I think I lost about half of that new income. And it was a heart attack piece of work, right? And this is what I mean. You might get paid 65 grand a year. In the real world, that's quite stressful work. You know, and people are getting that for nothing. Something's not right. And I'm all for the welfare state, by the way.
Mo, and me too. It just needs to be sensible and there for those that need it, a bit like asylum laws. Michael, what a brilliant call. Safe trip to Vietnam. And please come back, Michael, because we need you. You're a wealth creator. You're a hard-working man. You pay your taxes. You put more in than you take out. You've got common sense. And you are the salt of the earth. Michael in Birmingham, who thinks that the Prime Minister is going to cling on. Well, it is 6:48 on Talk Breakfast. Is the PM fit for office?
Why have they got exclusive rights to the rainbow?
I used to think the pride flag used to look cool when it was just a rainbow, and now it looks so ugly.
But yeah, well, why have they got
why can't we have the rainbow? And black to a rainbow.
Why can't we have the rainbow? Why have they got to have it?
Or why don't you do planks next week wearing a rainbow jacket? Go on.
Well, yeah, I think I will. I think I will. Let's move on.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast. Is Starmer fit to be Prime Minister? Here is a voice note from Big Pete.
Is Starmer fit to run the country? Old Feathers the Penguin. No, he isn't. And he hasn't been fit to run this country since the first day that he entered office, because he's done nothing but lie and scheme since the first day that he entered office. So quick to slag off Boris and Liz Truss and everybody else. But when he gets in and picks his little team to go on the front row with him, they are worse than the outgoing Tories. They are the worst government this country has ever seen, headed by a man who hasn't got this country's goodness at heart. He has his own. If you look at him, he looks dead behind the eyes. He has a written out agenda because he doesn't even know how to speak when he goes into his because he doesn't have a clue what to say. And that stinks to me like somebody else is already giving him the orders right from the start, where it's already written down for what he has to say in Prime Minister's questions that he never answers anyway.
A brilliant voice note. How about this from Hev?
Good morning, Mark. It's Hev from Kent. I still believe no matter what, Starmer will not leave voluntarily. He will keep going until the backbenchers turn around and say, right, that's it, you've got to leave, you've destroyed the party. And then he will threaten them with a general election, which means they will all lose their jobs, so then they won't vote against him. I reckon he's going to stick around and stick around and stick around. I really don't think he's going to be going anytime soon. Man's an absolute disgrace, and if the backbenchers don't want to lose their jobs, so they're not going to go against him, they're a disgrace as well.
Well, that's interesting what you say. Have a lot of people think that Starmer will try to cling on and that he'll be hard to shift. Mary has called the programme. Good morning, Mary. Welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm really well. Lovely to have you on the show. You're in the company of one of the country's leading public relations experts, Piers Pottinger. Is Starmer fit to run the country, Mary?
No, he isn't. And there's two things I'd like to ask. The first one is, could he call a general election without resigning as Prime Minister? Because I don't think he will ever resign, because he's too arrogant and he thinks he's Mr. Wonderful. So there's no way he's going to resign. But if he could call an election and still be the Prime Minister until it was found that Labour didn't get in again, then he, in his eyes, would keep his sort of persona. Well, I was the Prime Minister right up until the end.
Well, Mary, you raise a brilliant point. Stay with us, because Piers Pottinger, Mary's right. The Prime Minister can go to the King and ask for the dissolution of Parliament and a general election. And Starmer may not want to do that, but he can threaten it to his backbenchers who know they will lose their seats. That could keep him in office for a few more months.
It could, but I don't see him doing that. The reason I don't see him doing that is that the idea of calling an election at the moment would be even more disastrous for the Labour Party than the local elections are going to be. There's no question about that. So that no one wants that. I mean, to try and use that against his backbenchers, to be quite honest, I don't think he's got the spine to do that. He's terrified of his backbenchers. Also, the key thing is, after the local elections, there's going to be a big change in the National Executive Committee of the Labour Party, and a lot of the Starmer supporters on that committee have to give up their positions, and it looks like the left and supporters of Rayner and Burnham are going to be on, particularly Rayner, are going to be on that committee in large numbers, and then there'll be the NEC will have more ability to get rid of Starmer themselves. I don't think that he would call snap elections traditionally are a disaster. It's not, very few prime ministers have pulled that one off, and I think people would call his bluff if he was threatening that. I don't think he'd win that with his backbenchers. He's got no currency to deal with himself, and if he threatened it, I think they would push him out.
Mary, if he doesn't call a snap election, how long do you think he's got?
Well, he could go to the end of the term that they can be in. But I do have another question. Sorry, but,
go for it.
Is it possible that Peter Mandelson would have known that he hadn't passed the vetting check?
Piers, what do you think about that?
I think it is possible because he still had plenty of friends in the Labour Party in key positions, and particularly, of course, Morgan McSweeney. And I'm pretty certain that what will come out of this is that Morgan McSweeney did know, and I bet he told Mandelson. Morgan McSweeney, whose mobile phone, you may remember, has conveniently been stolen, which may, of course, have been stolen because it contains rather a lot of very interesting messages between his old boss Mandelson and McSweeney.
So doesn't that make Peter Mandelson even worse? Because should he not have, I mean, it's a stupid question, I expect, but should he not have said something to the Prime Minister, well, how can you make me an ambassador when I failed the vetting checks?
When you're as ambitious and greedy and ruthless and, dare I say it, dishonest as Mandelson, behaving in a proper manner doesn't occur to him.
No, probably not. But it's a shame, isn't it? Because this whole thing is absolutely diabolical for the country. And as you probably know, I mean, I'm living in Cyprus as an expat. Well, Keir Starmer is not, in my opinion, a statesman.
Mary, briefly, if you can, do you think a new leader can save this government?
Not a Labour one, no.
Why not?
Because I don't think that there's anybody who they've got no well, I don't know, they're not very good at arithmetic for a start, are they? They keep giving money away, and whoever, if there is ever another election, whoever gets in is going to have a terrible job to get the country sorted out again. But I don't think there's anybody that I can think of in the Labour Party at the moment who I would consider to be a suitable candidate for Prime Minister.
Thank you for that, Mary. What do you think about that, Piers?
I agree. I mean, I think this collective government has got a collective IQ of a Ferrero Rocher, and in some parts nuttier. I mean, I think Mary was right. I mean, they are not an appealing bunch of people. And the extraordinary thing, and the most extraordinary thing this week, was when Lord Robertson talked about the government in the way he did. As a Labour grandee, to attack Starmer in the way he did was utterly shocking.
Is Starmer fit to be PM? And this is what's next.
This is a scandal, as you say. If the Prime Minister's knowingly lied, any minister, whether it's the most important one, the Prime Minister, or the most junior minister, lying to the House of Commons is a capital offence and would have to go. And if the officials have lied when they're advising you, they should go.
On the 10th of September, the Prime Minister misled Parliament by saying the full due process was followed. If Mandelson failed the security vetting, full due process was not followed. Misleading Parliament is a resigning offence.
The Ambassador has repeatedly expressed his deep regret for his association with him. He's right to do so. I have confidence in him, and he's playing an important role in the UK-US relationship.
It was
clear that the Prime Minister wanted to make this appointment himself, and had therefore I understand that the FCDO was informed of his decision and acted upon it, and via the Foreign Secretary sought and obtained the King's approval for the appointment.
Even the expectation that Ollie Roberts felt quite comfortable, this is what we're being asked to believe.
Yes.
To hold back this information that he knew that he had that Mandelson had failed the vetting process, and that at no stage that it was necessary to tell the Prime Minister.
It's unbelievable. So he either knew and lied on this issue, or he didn't know, and that's just as bad.
Can the Prime Minister tell us, did the official security vetting he received mention Mandelson's ongoing relationship with the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein?
So clear. Prime Minister.
Yes, it did.
The Prime Minister, in a big speech in Hastings, said very clearly that Mandelson had passed. He said in the House of Commons that the vetting had revealed an ongoing relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, but not the extent of it. So you've got the Prime Minister publicly saying that the vetting had been done and that he knew about it, and now claiming he didn't know about it, he didn't know there'd been a rejection.
I think anybody who has been following the news over the past few months would have been surprised if Peter Mandelson had passed his vetting. The Prime Minister decided to appoint Peter Mandelson. The Prime Minister accepted that the process was going to be sped up.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Top of the morning, happy Sunday one and all. Mark Dolan with you on Talk Breakfast. It's 3 minutes past 7 and a number 10 in crisis. How much did the Prime Minister know about Peter Mandelson's failure to pass security vetting? Was he kept in the dark? Is he lying? Did the PM mislead Parliament? If he is toast, how long has he got? We're going to bring you all of the details and dimensions of this extraordinary political bombshell, which could see the departure of the Prime Minister from office this coming week. Which is why our question to you this morning is a simple one. Is Starmer fit for office? My number is 0344 499 1000. Rory is taking your calls. You can text the show. Text the word talk and your message to 87222. Leave us a voice note and let's talk. You can hear us on DAB Plus in-app and online. You can also watch the show. Just head to YouTube and search Talk and up we pop. The brilliant Neha is directing our TV output this morning. Front pages, let's start with the Sunday Times. Mandelson top client linked to China military. This is one of the big problems with the Mandelson story, is it pertains to national security. It's the understanding of this programme that it wasn't the Epstein links that caused Mandelson to fail security vetting, but rather his role as a PR executive with Chinese and Russian clients. Andrew Lloyd Webber, I'm a recovering alcoholic, is the front page of that paper. And Richard Tice's new tax row hits reform. Richard Tice failed to pay almost £100,000 in corporation tax, benefiting his investment company, which made large donations to Reform UK. And Malkinson, hold police to account. Andrew Malkinson has demanded fearless investigation of the police after Paul Quinn was convicted of the rape for which he spent 17 years in prison. Mail on Sunday. It is the story that won't go away. The clock is ticking, Sir Keir. Write the Mail. Starmer is not fit to run the country, says the leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch. Sunday Express, Prime Minister betraying our heroes to boost EU reset. Sunday Telegraph, Starmer accused of Mandelson cover-up. Let's get reaction to all of the big stories of the day in the company of one of the best connected public relations executives in the country, if not the world, no less. Piers Pottinger. Piers, good to see you in the studio.
Good to see you, Mark.
And down the line, the brilliant journalist and broadcaster and communications consultant, Linda Jubilee. Hello, Linda.
Hi, Mark. How are you?
I'm very well indeed. Linda, let's start with an easy one. Is the Prime Minister lying when he says he did not know that Peter Mandelson failed security vetting?
Well, what we don't know is whether he is what's called lying by omission. So we're not very clear about this at all. But the thing that interests me is to go back to the beginning of this story. Is the Prime Minister had a clear choice about, unusually, whether he wanted to appoint a diplomat or a politician, an ex-politician. And he chose that, and it wasn't between a diplomat and an ex-politician. It was between a diplomat and Peter Mandelson. And clearly he wanted Peter Mandelson right from the get-go against Angela Pierce, who was a great, I'm told from inside the tent, a great diplomat who had worked hard to develop a relationship with President Trump, who'd succeeded in doing so and was a career diplomat. So he
and the White House, interrupting you briefly, Linda, the White House made clear they were happy to keep the existing
very happy.
ambassador.
But that's what I can't understand about this. Everyone's agreed they were happy with Angela Pierce. Nevertheless,
Karen Pierce.
Sorry, Karen Pierce. Nevertheless, Keir Starmer decided that he wanted to go ahead with Peter Mandelson. And then you've got this timeline that grows out on the vetting process. And that is very, very unclear. But what I can tell you, because I've been vetted myself, is it's a very, at one level below DV. At DV, it's a very, very thorough process. And it's highly intrusive. And almost all of the time, people tell the truth because they know it's a very secure process. And they know that if they lie during DV, there will be career-ending repercussions. So we can assume that Peter Mandelson told the truth in vetting, and this is where these red flags came up. It's important to recognise that it's not like an exam. You don't pass or fail it. It's like a risk assessment that goes before the government, or should go before the government, to either help them make a decision or reassure them that they've made the right decision. And we've come to grief now because only lately have these problems become, we are told, public. You have mentioned in your intro that actually it's about Peter Mandelson's Chinese links. I suspect there could be more about his Russian links, but we may not get to grips at all with the fine detail of the DV report because we're not supposed to. Because, you know, under DV, they're going to ask you, did you have an affair? Who was the affair with? Was the person you had the affair with married? They're not so interested, I guess, in your sexual orientation, as long as it doesn't present a problem for coercion or blackmail. But you're right, the Jeffrey Epstein links may not have caused an issue. I think it probably is far more to do with Peter Mandelson's business links.
And Linda, you spent decades on Fleet Street. Is it credible that the political editor of The Independent should reach out to Number 10 and get a reply on WhatsApp revealing that he understood Mandelson had failed vetting in September of last year? Is it conceivable?
7 months ago, yeah.
Right. Is it conceivable that 7 months ago a top journalist reaches out to Number 10, they reply, and that it's front page news in The Independent that Mandelson failed vetting, and it doesn't get back to the PM? Is that credible?
Well, I mean, the political editor of The Independent is very clear that that is what happened, but that really does expose Keir Starmer. And I was reading about that yesterday. It's a damning indictment, if you like, that this kind of information was floating round. Now, what we need to do now is look towards what might happen on Monday when Sir Keir Starmer addresses the House, because he needs to be very, very clear about what he's going to say. And there's some possibility that he might be forced to change the parliamentary record. And that would, of course, be an admission of misleading the Commons. On Tuesday, he then comes back into the Commons to deal with stuff. And Ollie Robbins is due to appear as well. But I'm not sure whether he now can appear or should appear if he's no longer employed by the government.
Now, Piers Pottinger, if a top journalist reaches out to Number 10 and says, I've got this story, Mandelson's failed vetting 7 months ago, He gets a reply, so they didn't miss the message.
Yeah.
And we know that the team at Number 10 look at every newspaper every day.
Yeah.
This was front page news in the Indie.
Yeah.
So how can it be that Starmer didn't know? Because, for example, Ollie Robbins perhaps legally was not allowed to tell the Prime Minister, but a press spin doctor at Number 10 surely can tell the PM.
Well, of course. And, I mean, it's nonsense. I mean, when a story like that appears, the Prime Minister's going to say, is this true? Did he fail the vetting? I didn't know about that. What is the... I mean, if he didn't ask, it's just as bad as actually asking, knowing, and then misleading.
Well, if it was front page...
Whatever the truth is, my point is it doesn't matter whatever the truth is, because either way, Starmer looks appalling and has behaved dreadfully. And we go back, as Linda has quite rightly said, let's go back to the beginning here. It was Starmer's personal appointment of Mandelson. He decided, and it wasn't as if Mandelson was whiter than white and cleaner than clean. He's twice had to resign from the cabinet in disgrace. He's had already question marks about his connections with China and Deripaska and other Russian oligarchs, as well as the Epstein. I mean, that was all in the public domain. And the Prime Minister can't say he didn't know about any of that, because it's all, of course, there. So despite all of that, he still appointed him. It was a catastrophic mistake. Many people now have lost their jobs as a result of this appointment, as a direct result of Mandelson's appointment. The only person who hasn't lost his job as a result of this, well, two actually, Starmer and, don't forget, David Lammy, who keeps very, very quiet about this. Lammy actually said at one point he had warned the Prime Minister about Mandelson, and yet, as Foreign Secretary, he had to sign off on the appointment before the Prime Minister.
Now, Linda, we have the screenshot of the political editor of The Independent, David Maddox's message to Number 10, which received a reply. Therefore, we know that Number 10 were in possession of that information 7 months ago. We can agree that is the case, right?
Yeah.
So if the Number 10 press team are across that story and they read the papers every day, are they allowed to go upstairs to the Prime Minister, knock on his door and say, boss, have you seen this front page? Or are they bound by the same rules and indeed laws that Ollie Robbins was?
Well, the issue there is that even if there's some kind of protocol involved where they're bound by certain rules, the fact is that when a handful of people in a press office know something, it will not stay in the press office. Everybody knows that.
And they're not going to get prosecuted. Some kind of spin doctor at Number 10 is not going to have his collar felt for running upstairs or downstairs to the PM with the news of this, is he? Or
no,
she?
Not at all.
Because they're not they're not a civil servant, and they're not privy to the details.
Yep, absolutely. Now, the question is, everyone's talking about this, did Ollie Robbins keep receipts? So we don't know what he is going to come out with in terms of proof. And he will be one angry man. I am sure he was sacked. I was about to go on air, I think Wednesday night, and just an hour before I got there, he was sacked. And he will be very angry. He's a talented man. He's had a really good career. You know, he wanted to stay in that job.
He plays by the rules.
He plays by the rules. Most civil servants do play by the rules. There can be many criticisms of the civil service, but they attract a certain type of person. They attract a person who normally plays by the rules, who is diligent, and who keeps receipts.
Yes, I mean, how bad do you think things could get for the Prime Minister on Tuesday when Ollie Robbins, who has been sacked, receiving, I understand, a six-figure payout, Piers, speaks to Parliament?
Possibly. Well, it's a question of whether he is going to appear.
Oh, yes, you said
He
that.
has yet to actually officially agree that he will appear on Tuesday. And under the circumstances, it is quite possible and quite reasonable if he was to say he needs more time to prepare, because this is moving at a very fast pace, and the evidence he will give in that committee could be of national significance.
And also, what about that payout? At least 6 figures. So
Yeah.
it could be $500,000, could be $750,000.
I think he may be entitled to much more than £100,000, quite frankly.
Well, there you go. And with
Because
that in mind, but might the terms of his severance be that you keep stum?
if it would be very hard to do that to a civil servant, I'm sorry to say, in the sense that, I'm not sorry to say that, what I mean is they can't shut him up and sack him in the way they've done this. And the way they've done this, to me, stinks to high heaven. And this is a man who, as Linda has said, has had a distinguished career, is widely respected. To be sacked overnight, if he was indeed following the rules, and just because the Prime Minister's in a tantrum, has to find a fall guy, so he quickly sacks someone, rushes off to France, tucks into his snails and frog's legs, while poor old Ollie Robbins is wondering where his next steak and chips is coming from. No, I mean, it's an absolutely absurd situation, and it shows Starmer's spinelessness, his lack of political judgment.
Yeah.
On every level, this whole affair shows what a dreadful man Starmer is.
Can we not throw him a bone and say Starmer knew nothing and he's very angry and feels very let down this morning?
No, I don't think he can say that.
What if it's never proven that he knew?
Well, I think that is, people are always going to be sceptical. This will hang over him forever.
Will it ever be proven that he knew?
I think it probably could be at some point. I mean, again, there are a lot of things we don't know. And also, because we're all looking at the minutiae here, which is, again, what Starmer wants, by the way. Don't forget, he's a lawyer. He loves bureaucracy. He loves nitty-gritty stuff. That's why he loves the EU so much. It's just a giant bureaucracy and full of laws, regulations. He loves all this. But the big picture is he appointed a man who was proven to be a threat to national security. That alone is enough for him to have to resign.
Piers, before you run, I mean, this would be the toughest PR client you could ever take on, would be the Prime Minister. You know, imagine being his spin doctor this morning. I mean, I know you've worked miracles for other clients and corporations.
Well, I've worked for other Prime Ministers.
Yes, right.
And I certainly would never contemplate working for Starmer.
And just objectively, could he turn this around? And can this be spun away?
No. No.
Is that it? Are we in the fail last what is it, nail in the coffin territory?
Yeah, definitely. Starmer is over.
Wow, Starmer is over.
And the only person who doesn't realise it is probably him. I bet Mrs. Starmer, Lady Starmer, knows. I'm sure the whole family knows. Luckily, the game is up, Starmer. It's over.
It's funny you should mention Mrs. Starmer. Luckily, the one positive for Keir Starmer is that he has a really, really strong marriage and there are no other people involved.
Yes,
and that's
thank goodness.
fantastic.
A nice family, and
That's
I mean,
good.
he's entitled to that.
There's one person in his life and it's Mrs. Starmer, and always has been, and that's the one blessing.
I think he, as they say, when you often leave a high-profile job, I want to spend more time with my family.
Definitely.
And that's what Starmer will soon be doing.
That's right. He's very fond of his wife, very familiar with her, and sees her all the time.
So he should enjoy that.
Piers, I know you've got to run. Really, just a couple of seconds.
Yeah.
What's going to happen? I won't hold you to it, but crystal ball.
I think
he survives the week.
I don't think he survives the week.
Oh my goodness. And therefore a resignation before or by Friday?
Probably around the end of the week, maybe over the weekend, next weekend. Could be just as you're, in time for this show next week.
Oh my goodness. There you have it. Well, look, Piers has worked with prime ministers, he's worked with corporations, celebrities, public figures. He's on record as saying it is likely the Prime Minister will fall on his sword or be forced to resign this coming week. More to come. Talk Breakfast 7:20.
minister, whether it's the most important one, the Prime Minister, lying to the House of Commons is a capital offence and would have to go.
The week before the attack, he was off to try and do a different attack, and he was eventually stopped by his dad. So the second time it happened, where they also knew he ordered a cab and took out a knife from the house, they never once called the police.
First rule of politics, don't slam the Pope. Don't have a go at the Pope, because you lose the Catholic vote at a stroke. I'm not a big fan of Pope Leo. I like his brother.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Is Keir Starmer fit to be Prime Minister? Bobby says, good morning, Mark. Starmer is a lawyer well versed in legal tricks. His favourite plausible deniability, he did it with Reeves, fake CV. He did it with Reynolds, fake lawyer. He did it with Haig's, fake phone theft. There's Rayner and at least a dozen more. But his best one, Jimmy Savile, never came across my desk. Very, very good point. There's a consistent pattern there, isn't there? Not Robert. Linda, I suppose one big issue, Linda Dubeley, broadcaster and journalist and communications consultant, the issue we've got here, if you're seeking to unseat the Prime Minister, is that he's an experienced lawyer, and if there was some kind of cover-up, there's no better man to cover his tracks.
Yeah, I think that what's happening here, as Piers correctly identified in the last segment, is that he is a lawyer and he was a very well-educated, highly placed lawyer. And what we've got now is that he has sown the seeds of chaos, in my view. The situation has become so complicated, and that is bound to be of benefit to him, because as a lawyer, he will get into the weeds and try not to get back out again. But what I am saying, and what I believe Piers was saying, is that it's incumbent upon everyone to remember that this was an issue of judgment to start with. It wasn't just, I'm not going to have a diplomat, I'm going to have a politician. I'm going to have Peter Mandelson, when he knew that Peter Mandelson's past was riven with difficulties. I think I've said to you before, I interviewed Peter Mandelson in Brussels years ago, and you could tell, I mean, it was the whole afternoon.
It was an obnoxious experience in which at first he refused to be interviewed by you because you
So I stuck it out, and eventually I got the interview. I don't think he was overly pleased. But what that tells me...
What an unpleasant man.
He was very, very difficult. But what that tells me is that he not just that, he wanted to be interviewed by Sir Trevor, but he clearly didn't understand the story that I was doing, which was about fair trade. And he clearly didn't understand that he wasn't the core interview. Now, occasionally, Trevor did do the core interview, but it had to be a very big interview. He did not do a day trip to Brussels to go and do a side issue. And Peter Mandelson thought he was the main issue. And that shows a level of naivety, frankly, about how the media works. I was astonished.
Well, exactly right. I mean, it is quite astonishing. Is it possible that Starmer privately knew but can somehow prove through smoke and mirrors that publicly he did not?
I don't really think that's the issues. I think Piers hit upon this, the broad aspects of this, how this smells bad. And that's what I think troubles the public. I've said this before, the great German philosopher, I think it was Nietzsche, said, it's not that you lied to me, it's that I can't believe you in future.
Right.
And I think we have got to the point now, and again, he's right about this, and I believe this too, his moment of greatest peril is the next 4 or 5 days, because generally speaking, people now perceive that he at least lied by omission. And the problem is the perception, becomes reality. I mean, that's a key issue in the communications world. And he's at that point. Now, it is possible, I think, he could survive. And one of the biggest issues there is I think the Labour Party wouldn't know who to put in his place as things stand. They've got Wes Streeting, who is attached to Peter Mandelson. They've got Angela Rayner, who still hasn't paid her tax, I understand. And they're really, and who's the Deputy Prime Minister? Oh, yeah, that's David Lammy. So the big problem there is, for them, for the Labour Party, is how do they replace Sir Keir Starmer? So it's possible, because of some other factors, he will be able to hang on in there. But I don't think that, I think this is the nail in the coffin. There's a term in communications that, you know, the patient's bleeding out and there's nothing you can do to stop it. And I think that we have reached that point with Keir Starmer.
And what do you make of Piers Pottinger's view that Starmer may have to fall on his sword this coming week, that there may be a statement by the time I'm next on air on Friday, Linda?
Yeah, it kind of, do you know what it reminds me of? And only I think this is actually more serious. It reminds me of the run-up to Boris Johnson's resignation, where I switched the radio on early in the morning, 6 o'clock, Lord MacDonald comes out of retirement and he says, the Prime Minister said that, but I'm telling you, this is the truth. And I thought that Boris Johnson would not last the day, and he did not. He went at 6 o'clock or just before that evening. And that was, to my mind, about kind of lesser issues, because this is an issue of national security. I mean, where are we with China? We're really, really worried about them, especially building their super embassy right close to Tower Hill. Where are we with Russians? Oh, yeah, they're at war in Ukraine. You know, we cannot have someone in the mix with such close ties. Plus, I think that Keir Starmer, you know, I'm sure he's well-educated, I'm sure he's clever, but he doesn't have key leadership qualities. Piers highlighted one. He said he had a tantrum, and he does do that. He can be petulant, but he can also lack real key leadership qualities. One top one would be judgment.
And of course, none of this would be a problem, Linda, if we had 3 or 4% growth, if inflation was at 2%, if the special relationship was in robust health, if there was money for military spending, if the potholes in the roads were being filled up. The whole policy platform surrounding this government is also a hot mess.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, I think our growth is now at 0.08%. I believe it's the worst in the G7.
Yeah.
That's a problem. We've got unemployment problems. We've got a huge band of so-called NEETs, people not in education training or whatever, and it's growing. Yeah. We've got an elderly population, which is growing because, thank heavens, we've got better medical services now. But that leaves a smaller and smaller slice of the population earning money to pay tax to fund this or not fund it. So the situation is very, very serious for Keir Starmer on a number of levels. Glad you mentioned the potholes. I ruined my tie last week on one of those.
See, there you go. We're all paying the price for this government's egregious policies. What's your best bet? If it's a little previous to think that Starmer steps down this week, how do you see things playing out, Linda? I mean, the idea that he's having his Christmas turkey as Prime Minister in number 10 is unlikely, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't really sort of pick a successor, if you like, because...
No.
Because the other thing we've got the May elections coming up on May the 7th. I'm absolutely certain that no one wants to be in the hot seat for the result of those. So, because that will be, I understand, pretty catastrophic for the Labour Party. So I don't know whether it's possible he could be left in place to limp forward. It's only a couple of weeks now before those elections. You get past the elections. This is what I might be tempted to do if I was a Labour Party advisor. Try and get to the summer where there is at least a breathing space and come back with a reasonable succession plan in the autumn. But who knows?
Who knows indeed? Well, no better to ask than Linda Jubilee. Linda, we'll catch up soon. Thank you for your valuable time. Journalist, broadcaster and communications consultant Linda Jubilee. Is Starmer fit to run the country? 7:31, this is Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Is Starmer fit to be Prime Minister? Barry's in Norwich. Good morning, Barry.
Good morning, Mark. How are you? I'm Piers.
I'm very well. Happy Sunday to you. Not a very happy Sunday for the Prime Minister. Piers Pottinger has dropped a bombshell. He thinks that I will be bringing the news to you on Friday of this week that Starmer has resigned.
Yeah, I agree with him. I think he's got to go. Yeah, he's finished. He's toast. I mean, you know, how can you possibly, right? If you're a boss of a company or something like that, and I come to you for a job and I say, well, I've been booted out twice of the same job in the same department. Would you employ me again? I mean, you know, he's not a leader. Yeah, he's a manager. He's just not leading this country. If you like, this country was in middle Premier League table position. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
it is going into the Championship at a rapid rate. Yeah, and. You know, everything he's doing, he wasn't in his manifesto, the ID cards, the taking us back into the EU by stealth, you know, and all the other stuff that he's done, it's just not there for him. And this government, you know, I mean, they're hideous, absolutely hideous. They don't like the British people. They're doing everything that they can for anyone else but the British people, the immigrants. You know, he's lifted the 2-child cap, yeah, which was just horrendous. That's more money that people like me and you have got to pay out.
Yeah,
right, for other people's kids. Yeah, you know, it's just scandalous. I just think he needs to go and go quickly.
Most definitely. What a great call, Barry. You speak for a nation. Call me again soon, Barry in Norwich there. John has called the programme. Top of the morning, John. Welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Good morning. And is he doing a Tottenham Hotspurs?
Well, you mean going down?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I've got more confidence in Tottenham Hotspur at the moment than I do in this current government, and I'm a Spurs fan. I mean, it's...
I know you are.
Well, bless you for that, and thank you for your sympathy. I mean, what we did last night, conceding in the 95th minute, was to snatch... defeat from the jaws of victory. That's something the Prime Minister's been doing. I mean, can you name one good thing that he's done as PM?
No.
I can't.
Absolutely
I'm
not.
struggling.
I mean, I despise the man with a passion, but this is why I rang. If he goes, really, who's going to be in charge? Miliband? The thing about Starmer is all this stuff he's done, nearly all of it, has been U-turned.
Yeah.
Would the Rayner or Miliband U-turn as much as he's done?
Well, I don't think so, because I just think it's his duplicitous nature. This is a guy that has got no North Star. He's got nothing that guides him. He's got no philosophy or ideology, John.
The obvious thing we need is a general election. Now, that's the only thing I want out of this man. I want him, you know, you cut me off if I'd say what I really want to say.
Well,
well, I would, and there's millions of us think what I think. They're traitors, aren't they? And what do we used to do to traitors? You know, they're traitors to our country, these people. And I just want a general election. I just want to get Nigel in, and that's it. You know, and reverse all these crackers' ideas, you know.
I mean, is there a figure in the Labour Party that can save this government? Because they still got over 3 years to run.
No, none of them have got any experience in life, as we know. They've all been union leaders and all the rest of it. They're just, you know, no, you can't have people running the country who've got no experience, and I think that's the facts.
John, thank you for a brilliant call. Have an excellent Sunday. Cindy is in the United States. And Cindy, lovely that you've called in because, of course, this scandal relates to the UK ambassador to America. And what a hot mess it is.
It's a big hot mess. But the gig is up for Starmer. Starmer is ridiculous. He's a liar. And I predict she's going to resign on Monday.
Wow. And what do you think would motivate that? Is that because even he knows that he's done?
Yeah, because how could it be that everybody knew and nobody told Starmer? That doesn't make any sense at all.
Well, I agree, because Cindy, we have this civil servant called Sir Ollie Robbins, and the argument is that legally he was not allowed to go to the Prime Minister and say Mandelson has failed vetting, because the vetting process happens within the civil service. It is independent of politics. It is confidential. That's fine. So maybe we accept the argument that the civil servant did not go to the PM. However, it was on the front page of a national newspaper in September of last year. You know how these political operations work. It's the same in the White House. There is a team that scour the newspapers every day. Are you telling me that the spin doctors see the headline and it doesn't get back to the boss?
Right, exactly.
I mean, am I missing something here, Cindy?
He's done.
Am I missing something?
No. Not at all.
I mean, I don't think anyone in America cares about Starmer, but I'm just wondering, you know, what is the American perception of the government?
The perception of the government, that it needs to be changed.
Yeah. Because the Americans, you know, you like the UK. I think you're fond of Britain as a country, and I think you would like to see Britain do well.
Absolutely. And I'm not the only one that loves Britain.
Well, it's called the special relationship. By the way, Cindy, while I've got you, what is your latest appraisal of the US President Donald Trump? Because there are some on the right who have started to part company with the president politically, including the top TV host Megyn Kelly and Tucker Carlson, who appear to be dismayed by Trump's recent actions and his comments. What do you think?
I think that, I stand by Trump, and Megyn Kelly, that's a shock. That is a big shock. She was really a staunch Trump supporter.
She was late to the party, wasn't she?
Yeah, I think that a lot of Christians have parted company with Trump because of his disagreement with the Pope that he's having. But I haven't. And there's a lot of other people who are standing by his side.
Well, Cindy, I think what's going to happen is there's going to be a deal with Iran because the Iranian regime have lost most of their leadership. The economy is in the toilet. They've got no navy, no air force. And I think they will come to the table because at a certain point there, people are going to start starving. The IRGC, the military wing, are not going to be able to pay the wages of their soldiers. So a deal's going to be done, and I think what you'll see in a few months' time is a weakened Iran and a victorious USA.
I think we've already won, basically.
Cindy, what a treat to have you on the show.
Too. They're finished just like Starmer.
Crumbs. What about that? What a great line and what a great parallel. Cindy, we'll catch up soon. Thanks for a brilliant call. All the very best live from the United States there. Is Starmer fit to run the country? Let's take a quick voice note from Eugenie.
Good morning, Mark. Super show as always. Eugenie from Bexhill-on-Sea. I think Starmer isn't fit to run the country and he should go. Whether he knew the ins and outs of all this saga, regardless of the details of who knew what, he knew he was a snake when he took him in, so he can't then turn around and complain when he bit him. Anyway, great show, Mark.
Thank you, Eugenie. How about this from Nick?
Morning, Mark. It's Nick from Loughborough. We must remember amidst all this that Starmer is the consummate narcissist, and in the face of a revolt from his backbenchers, he is prepared, I'm sure, to burn the party down and call a general election rather than face the ignominy of another 3 years on the backbenches as the worst Prime Minister this country has ever seen. Have a good day, Mark.
Thank you, Nick. It's not impossible that Starmer will call a back me or sack me election. It would be a scorched earth policy, but I wouldn't put it past him because I don't think he's got any ethics at all. Is Starmer fit to be Prime Minister? 7:43. This is Talk Breakfast.
Join me, Ian Collins, every weekday.
Donald Trump has closed the Strait of Hormuz. This is curious since the whole point of this part of the war, well, at least as I thought it, or saw it, was to reopen it. Can anybody explain that? You are not a worthy citizen. You couldn't even spot a murderer in your own house. Well, you could. You just didn't tell anyone about it. Everything you need to know. All the breaking news right here on Talk.
Only at the home of common sense.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Is Starmer fit for office? How about this from Dan in Poole? Mark, it's so obvious that there was a discussion about the failed vetting between McSweeney and Starmer on McSweeney's missing phone. How about this from Justin in Hove? Mark, Starmer apparently found out about Mandelson failing vetting on Tuesday. So why didn't he come to Parliament on Wednesday and set the record straight? I'll tell you for why. Because he wants to get all his ducks in a row and get to the bottom of all the facts. So why didn't he do this in September when it was first reported that Mandelson failed vetting? The whole thing stinks, and I'm staggered he's trying to wriggle out of this. Justin, thank you for that. Here's a voice note from Jennifer.
Morning, Mark. Is Starmer fit to lead this country? I think we all know the answer to that. Absolutely not. In fact, I didn't think he would be a decent Prime Minister, even in opposition. Never liked the man. He's empty. Just look into their eyes. They say if you look into someone's eyes, you can see their soul. Come on, people. What do we see when we look into his eyes? It's just dark. He's never going to leave office. He's not going to go without a fight, because let's face it, what has he got when he leaves office? He's got absolutely nothing. The country hates him. He's got nowhere to go. He's got zilch. The only thing I can think he could possibly do is either be Macron's second-hand man or Zelensky's second-hand man, if you know what I mean.
I
Thanks,
really
Mark.
do. Jennifer, honestly, folks, I love the calls, I love the voice notes, I love the texts as well. Let's conclude this part of the conversation with a voice note from Big Adam. Take it away, Ads.
Hi, Mark. This is Adam from Bournemouth. Right, one thing I'm going to just say is, regardless of how you cut this pie, Starmer still appointed Mandelson. He can throw as many people as he wants under the bus. He can sack whoever. He can tell people off. He can say this, that, and the other. The buck stops at the top. We all know that in life. The man at the top always takes the rap. End of. So, regardless of all of this, if he thinks he's going to save the Labour Party from going down, believe you me, he isn't. The only way Labour can save themselves now is get somebody else in charge, and they might get a change. But other than that, mate, they're not. Anyway, mate, fantastic show as always. Keep the good fight going, my friend.
Thank you, Adam. Really appreciate that. We're going to continue this conversation. How long has Starmer got? Is it game over? And is he fit to be Prime Minister? Can you imagine another 3 years of this? Surely that's dangerous. Surely that's a national security issue. And you can't have someone leading a government that the public don't believe. 7:49 Talk Breakfast. Was Harry and Meghan's trip to Australia a triumph or a disaster? Who better to ask than a very old friend of mine, the brilliant online editor at The Spectator Australia, Alexandra Marshall, who is live down under. Hi, Alexandra.
Go easy with the old there, Mark.
Most definitely. Well, listen, you're very well preserved, unlike me. I mean, I'm showing a bit of metal fatigue. But let's talk about Harry and Meghan and their brand. First of all, Alexandra, why did they go to Australia?
No one has the faintest idea, and worse than that, Mark, most Australians had no idea they were even here. There was a great quote in the Sydney Morning Herald that I wrote down for us. It said, "Australia was good to Harry and Meghan. Now they want to use us as an ATM." Now, the problem is Australia is almost $1 trillion in debt, so good luck with that. And the gold rush was in the 1850s. So Harry and Meghan are a little bit late for that one. But genuinely, Mark, no one knew they were here. I had to actually go and Google what they are up to. They were apparently across the road from me in Sydney this morning, and you wouldn't even know it.
So they failed to make the headlines they hoped they would make.
They weren't even really front page of the Daily Mail until a few minutes ago, when apparently an aide got given a bit of a side glare from Meghan. But apart from that, they're not even in the news cycle. That's how dire this trip has been. Whatever the star quality is that Harry and Meghan originally had, it was definitely tied to the love Australians have of the monarchy. And I think there was a YouGov poll that came out today that showed that Queen Elizabeth is still the most popular royal. And she's no longer with us. The second most popular is Diana. who is also not with us. Right down the bottom, second last is Meghan, and third last is Harry.
Well, that's not a great look, is it? So the Australian public have not taken any notice, but given that you are an elite level journalist, you've been across the story. What did you make of their activities? Because it was presented as a predominantly humanitarian visit where they were going to go and hang out in a children's hospital, meet kids battling cancer. There were the philanthropic activities. That's what they wanted to present the trip as. But what did you make of the messaging underneath all of it?
Well, aside from a very strangely named event where Harry was giving advice on the psycho safety and human connection at the workplace, which is a pretty strange title, mostly they were talking about our under 16 social media ban, which has been a total non-event slash disaster in Australia. I know the UK wants to copy it, but basically everyone's saying it is political. It was an election pitch from the Labor government that they stole from our Liberals. And so Harry and Meghan spent a lot of time. You might have seen the headline, Meghan said she's the most trolled person in the last 10 years or something. That was all about this political piece of legislation that's protecting children, but actually cutting young people out of the political conversation. Because as we all know, Mark, the youth of the Conservative movement finds conservatism online, and our Labor Party is not very happy about that. So they received a warm welcome from the Victorian Premier, and I'm pretty sure it was to do with this whole little project for the banning social media.
Well, yes, because we know that Harry and Meghan are very censorious people. Let's not forget that Harry spends every 10 minutes legally battling newspapers like the Daily Mail, and they don't want the accountability from the press or on social media about their own hypocrisy and double standards either.
Well, not only that, they don't like criticism. So they have that in common with our Labor Party, where criticism online is a bit of a no-no. But I will tell you one thing. She did, well, not she, both of them went down to Bondi Beach to meet the victims of the Bondi terror attack we had here. And one person didn't move out of the way. There's a great clip of, I think you're going to play it now, of a woman lying sunbathing in the sand, and she sort of doesn't even know they're there. That's a great image for how Australia has received the royals. I've noticed there's more interest in the US tour with the King going over to the anniversary of the US there than there has been at the Meghan tour.
Oh, it's pretty devastating, isn't it? So, I mean, I don't know what you think, but I would suggest that going to a children's hospital and meeting young patients with cancer, or meeting those who are victims of, indirectly or directly, the Bondi Beach terror attack, it strikes me as creepy, inappropriate, and characterises Harry and Meghan as a pair of ghouls.
Well, I'm not sure I'd go that far. It's more just that's something that popular people do when they come to Australia. We're used to the press tours, we're used to the children's hospital visits and things like that. It's more the press has covered the use of merchandising. So there are some shots of them up toward the some of our landmarks, and she's wearing certain clothes, which people are talking about might be a bit of a branding exercise. It's more to do with the commercialization of the monarchy that upsets Australians, because we are still quite tied to our monarchy. We chose to keep the monarchy. We were asked, we kept it. And we've just dismissed our last person who was trying to bring apart another referendum on it. But we don't like the monarchy being cheapened by commercial activity. So more than anything, that has been the real coverage over here about this tour.
Meanwhile, Harry attacks his father subtly by saying that actually every generation is an upgrade in terms of quality of parenting. I mean, he had lots of caveats and if, buts and maybes. The message was clear. My dad didn't do a great job.
That was a bizarre interview. I think it happened on the plane on the way over and then was reported. Everyone remembers when the young children were brought to Australia many decades ago. And it just seems to be a bit mean-spirited, what's coming out from the pair of them. I don't know if they're just particularly bad at how they talk about their family, or if it's just because, I don't know, all the books that came out and all the press, no one has any good faith left for Prince Harry and Meghan. So yeah, his comments about his father, no one's particularly fond of Charles over here, but it just fell flat. The whole coverage has been a PR disaster, really.
Oh, my goodness, a PR disaster. That is damning, isn't it? What's your appraisal of the state of their marriage? Do you think that they're still deeply in love, Alexandra?
Well, look, we obviously can't comment on the details of their marriage, but let's just say that a lot of people have bets running with bottles of beer and bottles of wine about whether or not those two children and Prince Harry might escape back to the UK at some later date and rejoin the monarchy. Because, of course, all of the life of privilege that Harry's been used to and all of his fame is related to the monarchy. And when you start to attack the one institution that brought all the love and affection of an entire nation, you'd have to wonder how that plays on Prince Harry, because Australia embraced his mother when she came here and Charles when they came. We had our streets full of millions of adoring Australians. And even when Charles came very recently, the streets were full. And when they came today, nobody. They were even looking for crowds, apparently, and their events were empty. They left early. So it's not a good sign for Harry that this is what's happened to his popularity in Australia when we're quite a loving, embracing country.
Well, I'll stick my neck out. I've looked at the body language and I have doubts that that will be a long-standing union, especially if and when the money runs out. But you're suggesting, Alexandra, that the couple, the Sussexes, dream of a return to the UK and a desire to be part of the royal family again?
Well, one of the Sussexes, let's put it that way. I think the others might prefer...
Now, wait a minute. We're getting... This is a scoop. So you're saying Harry wants to come home and Meghan wants to stay in America?
That would be my personal opinion on the matter. I don't think she's keen to go back to the UK. I don't think she was even particularly keen to be over here in Australia. I thought we were like a backwater to the Netflix and the Hollywood fiasco. But, you know, they came looking for branding and some attention and they didn't really get it. If the aim was to build publicity, it didn't work.
So that would be a point of tension in the relationship if Harry was pining for a UK return and Meghan says, well, I'm happy in America. And it's understandable, isn't it? Because Meghan's got more going on in her life than Harry does.
Sometimes I do feel a little sorry for Harry. I mean, he was a darling of the press. He did do a lot of genuine humanitarian work, particularly with the military, and that seems to have cooled off. And it's never good when, I mean, I still remember Princess Diana. I was very young when she died, and everyone had a lot of affection for her two children. So it's a bit sad to see the state of affairs now that her son comes to Australia and barely anybody notices. I wouldn't say that's positive. I am an ambassador for Australians for constitutional monarchy, so I do have a general love of the monarchy here. Yeah. And when Princess Anne came, there was far more love and affection for Princess Anne than this current royal tour.
Were Australians insulted by this trip, do you think?
It's so much worse than that, Mark. It's indifference. Wow. It is genuine, total indifference. You guys had more titles running in your press than we did over here. Most Australians do not know these two are in the country, even if they're in the same city. They probably don't even know they're in the same street. That is a total failure of the Sussex brand.
Wow, to be ignored is the ultimate kryptonite for Harry and Meghan.
Especially by Australians. We are quite embracing of people who come here and we went, sorry, who?
It's damning. Alexandra, so good to see you again. Please join us in the near future. Online editor at The Spectator Australia. A very clear message. Harry and Meghan went down under. No one noticed. Lots more to get through. A simple question this morning. Is Starmer fit to be Prime Minister? 0344 499 1000.
This is a scandal, as you say. If the Prime Minister's knowingly lied, any minister, whether it's the most important one, the Prime Minister, or the most junior minister, lying to the House of Commons is a capital offence and would have to go. And if the officials have lied when they're advising you, they should go.
On the 10th of September, the Prime Minister misled Parliament by saying the full due process was followed. If Mandelson failed the security vet, vetting for due process was not followed. Misleading Parliament is a resigning offence.
The ambassador has repeatedly expressed his deep regret for his association with him. He's right to do so. I have confidence in him, and he's playing an important role in the UK-US relationship.
It was clear that the Prime Minister wanted to make this appointment himself, and had therefore I understand that the FCDO was informed of his decision and acted upon it, and via the Foreign Secretary sought and obtained the King's approval for the appointment.
Even the expectation that Ollie Roberts felt quite comfortable, this is what we're being asked to believe.
Yes.
To hold back this information that he knew that he had that Mandelson had failed the vetting process, and that at no stage that it was necessary to tell the Prime Minister.
It's unbelievable. So he either knew and lied on this issue, or he didn't know, and that's just as bad.
Can the Prime Minister tell us, did the official security vetting he received mention Mandelson's ongoing relationship with the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein?
So clear. Prime Minister.
Yes, it did.
The Prime Minister, in a big speech in Hastings, said very clearly that Mandelson had passed. He said in the House of Commons that the vetting had revealed an ongoing relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, but not the extent of it. So you've got the Prime Minister publicly saying that the vetting had been done and that he knew about it, and now claiming he didn't know about it, he didn't know there'd been a rejection.
I think anybody who has been following the news over the past few months would have been surprised if Peter Mandelson had passed his vetting. The Prime Minister decided to appoint Peter Mandelson. The Prime Minister accepted that the process was going to be
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
What do you think, folks? How long has he got? A very good morning. This is Talk Breakfast. It is Sunday. It is 8:03, and breaking this morning, number 10 in crisis. How much did the PM know about Peter Mandelson's failure to pass security vetting? Did he mislead Parliament? And he's under pressure now. Could he be gone by the end of this week? How long do you think Starmer has got? Let me know in days, weeks or months. 0344 499 1000. Text the word TALK and your message to 87222. Leave us a voice note. Your political predictions, please. How long has Starmer got? And is he still fit to be Prime Minister? Is this a national security problem if he stays in post for the next 2.5 to 3 years? Is Starmer fit to be PM? So we'll bring you all of the details and dimensions of this extraordinary political bombshell. I'll be speaking to the biggest names in politics and journalism. But I can't do it without you. Is Starmer fit to be Prime Minister? Rory's on the phones today, so book your place on the show. You can hear us on the radio. You can watch us on TV. Just head to YouTube. It is a brilliant product. There's so much going on. There's never a dull moment. It's exciting. It's lively. It's very, very punchy indeed. Just head to YouTube, search Talk, and up we pop. I'm going to humbly suggest it's the best TV show on air as we speak. And there's one reason why the show is so good. Because we've got rid of Dean Spencer, who's back in rehab. What happened to Dean, my boss, the producer of this show, is it was curry night at Wetherspoons. He went in for a tikka masala. He never came back. Which is why we have Talk star Phil Dave, who, as you know, is a regular on Talk as a broadcaster, but he's directing the show today because he's here mainly, I'll be honest, to save the show editorially and also to get the numbers up, which is working. Folks, I can't do it without you. What do you think? Is Starmer fit to be Prime Minister? 0344 499 1000. A massive, massive couple of hours to come, including Dolan's dispatch at 9 o'clock, which might get me cancelled. I'm not even kidding. But let's kick off the conversation with a good friend of mine, political strategist and broadcaster Peter Barnes. Peter, top of the morning, welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Good morning, Mark. How are we doing?
I'm very well indeed. Sir Keir Starmer, is he fit to be Prime Minister?
He never was fit to be Prime Minister, so I don't know why people keep asking that question. He shouldn't have been there in the first place. He's the product of the system. I think it's really important that we remember that he's not the main illness. He's a symptom. He's a product of a system that is managerial, that looks after itself, that's opaque, that does not want democratic scrutiny. And the last thing that it really wants to do is have everybody in the country asking, well, wait a minute, who knew what and when? Keir Starmer was basically a product of that because he doesn't like making a decision. He doesn't like it without the process. And this is what this story really is. It's nothing to do with Peter Mandelson per se, because we need to know how many times has a situation like this arisen before. Because if the Prime Minister doesn't need to know about failed vetting, how many ambassadors or diplomats have we got running around the world with compromised credentials? Because that is a very real question we have to ask.
If the chief civil servant in the Foreign Office, Ollie Robbins, was precluded from telling the Prime Minister that Mandelson failed vetting because of the law and because of confidentiality, is that a defence that keeps the Prime Minister in number 10?
Unfortunately, yes. Because this is Keir Starmer, and this is lawyering, this is barrister speak, and all the rest of it. And for everybody else, he should have packed up his bags, the day this story actually broke. But unfortunately, it's Keir Starmer, and he's going to use it to kind of work his way around and make sure he stays put, because you have to remember his ace up the sleeve to stay in power is the threat of a general election. There is no way the Labour Party would collapse itself now and go to the public. Absolutely not. So he's got to threaten the cabinet to say, you back me or we're going to the polls and you all lose your seats. And don't get me wrong, I still think he's got that streak within him, that real nasty streak that we have seen in the past to actually do that. And I think he'll take the Labour Party down because it is process. It's not for him, remember. This is about the process that broke, not Keir Starmer.
So you believe it's likely that he may threaten to call a general election, to go to the King, to seek the dissolution of Parliament as a way of weaponising what would be an election wipeout?
Yes, without a doubt. And I suspect he's already done it when this story first broke. I think he's probably done it a number of times, really, over major policy uses.
And actually, the threat is implied anyway. He doesn't even have to threaten it, does he?
Well, the thing is, he usually hires quite well the kind of attack dogs, and usually he gets those to do it. Look how he used to treat certain members of the Labour Party parliamentary party, and the way that the operations of Number 10 were absolutely savage to them. But the Prime Minister was not aware of those situations either. He's very good at being present but not involved, a lot more so than Jeremy Corbyn was.
Do you think, therefore, this perception of the Prime Minister as incompetent, that he's got a team that aren't speaking to him, that he can't be trusted with important information, that he was asleep at the wheel, is actually a misdirection, and that the reason why Starmer appears to have been in the dark is by design, with a message from Number 10, which is get the job done, like a mafia boss, like Don Corleone, get the job done, but I don't want to know anything about it.
Yes, exactly. But also, whether this was done deliberately or not, the fact they announced Peter Mandelson before a lot of these vettings had actually been kind of processed through was also part of the problem, because then the entire system is designed to give the Prime Minister what he wants. That's part of the problem here. And that's why I have to admit them coming out and saying that they weren't going to kind of announce major Foreign Office postings until the vetting was actually the right thing to do. It shouldn't have been that way anyway. It should have been sent to actually make sure the person you're announcing could get the job. But, you know, this is British civil service, so common sense does not enter the room, let alone the atmosphere.
Peter Barnes,
yeah, unfortunately, we're there.
Did Mandelson need vetting, given the fact that it was in the public domain that he'd resigned from the cabinet twice, on at least one occasion, having a case to answer, and then, of course, his friendship with Epstein, which was publicly known? I mean, we didn't need this vetting, did we?
No, he shouldn't have been there in the first place. The guy in Wetherspoons at 11 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday could have told you that Peter Mandelson was a terrible choice for any position in government. The fact that he's been booted out under a dark shadow every single time tells you he should not have been even anywhere near, because this is really, really important. Because one thing nobody's really talking about is actually the credibility of the UK under the Five Eyes programme. This is a national security issue, and the only thing keeping Britain in the room is our intelligence and our credibility on that front. This puts a absolute rod right through it. It is done, because you cannot have our number one guy, the one who's meeting with the President of the United States, a compromised figure, which technically he was. Now, don't get me wrong, he's going to have a lot of links to a lot of people. That is the nature of Peter Mandelson. If you're a consultant, in my world, it's what you do. You meet a lot of people. The question is, can he be trusted with that information? I say, obviously not. And I think that is the bit where he's failed more than likely, is can he be trusted with this information? And they've gone and looked the other way and deliberately pushed this through, because it's not Sir Ollie Robbins that's the problem. He is the permanent undersecretary. What was the permanent secretary doing? What was the foreign secretary doing? Why is David Lammy still in Parliament? He should have been booted out. This is a huge compromising of British national security and our credibility on the world stage. And David Lammy, it was not so long ago saying that he was taking, you know, that he said Peter Mandelson shouldn't have got the job. That's not what his office has just done. So either he didn't have control or he's complicit in it. Either way, pack your bags, out you go.
Alan is in North Yorkshire. Good morning, Alan. Welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Good day, Mark.
Good to have you on the show. What do you make of all of this?
Well, I think the point is that apart from Keir Starmer, a blind man on a galloping horse can see that he's not a good one. And that aside, all the parliamentarians, the Labour people, how they have got the gall to stand up in Parliament and just show us that they're keeping their jobs, because they know that if they come forward and tell the truth and stand up for what is right, then they're going to lose their job, because there's going to be an election. And apart from anything else, didn't Mandelson have a responsibility to know that he must have known that he didn't fail, that he failed the tests, whatever they may be, and so he took the job under false pretenses. If I lied on a business application, then I could start that job, yes, but as soon as my employer found out, it kicked my back out.
Most definitely. And Alan, do you find it credible that 7 months ago it's front page news in The Independent that Mandelson failed security vetting, and that doesn't reach the attention of the Prime Minister?
Yeah, right. Yeah, my mother-in-law doesn't know I'm married. Hello.
Alan, stay with us. What do you make of that? This is a very important intervention, isn't it, from David Maddox, Peter. David Maddox, the political editor of The Independent. He reaches out to Number 10 in September of last year. They reply to his WhatsApp. It's been screenshotted on X, in which he said, look, it's my understanding Mandelson failed vetting and it's because of China links, not Epstein. They reply, it's front page news, and still the Prime Minister doesn't know?
David Maddox has done some phenomenal work here, and I wish he was getting the credit for uncovering this great story. He's a man of high integrity, and I've worked with him in the past here, actually, at Talk, and I think it staggers me. It's just bemusing, but then you have to remember, we say quite a lot of the time, Keir Starmer doesn't have the political antennae to realise that a front-page news story might actually be a problem. Could he think that, I've got through it, nobody paid attention? Because I think that's starting to seem like a more likely excuse, is that he is somewhat, as I always say, the Walter Mitty of British politics. He just wanders through life and everything seems to happen around him, but he's got no kind of interjection in it. And I think that's very dangerous for a Prime Minister. But as I say, he's the symptom. He's not the illness. So you can get rid of him, but you've got to change the culture of the civil service. You've got to change the process. You've got to change so much of the systems of this country, because it's not just this. I look at Axel Ruder Cabana, that report. It was about the system. I look at the report into Manchester Arena bombing. The system didn't work. This is the point, is we talk about a lot about British bureaucracy. If there's no box to tick, no one can tick the box. And then unfortunately on this one, people ticked a lot of boxes and it was shuffled away. That is very concerning, because what, as I say, what else has been shuffled away so that, the Prime Minister doesn't need to know?
Big Al, what do you think's going to happen, sir?
Well, it's inconceivable that Keir Starmer's going to stick his hand up and say, I was wrong and I've been lying to you all this time and I'm a horrible little cretin. That's probably not going to happen. What should happen, though, is that the other Labour MPs need to grow a set and stand up for what they believe. Otherwise, they're just demonstrating their career politicians and they don't give a toss about you, me or anybody else. They care about their job.
Salford.
Well, that's very interesting what you've had to say, and I've got to say I want everyone's response to that from Alan. This is the conversation this morning. It's about Starmer's fitness for office. It's about the possibility that this guy, who is in my view a disgraced figure, is trying to cling to power, which I think is a national security problem. Is Sir Keir Starmer fit to be Prime Minister? Lots more to come. 8:16, this is Talk Breakfast.
Welcome to Down the Local, the show that goes from pub to pub across the country, speaking to the punters about the subjects driving us all nuts at the moment.
That's Rachel Reeves, Rachel Thieves, Rachel McCounts.
I don't really know Meghan Markle. I know Meghan Markle's from Suits. That's about it.
I don't know about anyone else, and I don't know where this is going. I have 0% beers, and I feel
raising the flag, I think, is symptomatic of its desperation.
Is public transport good value for money?
No, it isn't.
You really don't like speaking to people.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk. It's Mark Dolan with you at 8:19 on a Sunday morning. Is Sir Keir Starmer fit to be Prime Minister? Michael says Starmer's duplicity is deflecting from the fact that at least 600 migrants crossed the Channel yesterday and 300 so far today. How much did he give Macron yesterday by way of money? Well, Michael, you're so right to point that out. £500 million is what we've given the French so far. And we've had 70,000 illegals since the PM took office. This is Sir Keir, Smash the Gangs, Starmer. And that's a really important point, isn't it, Peter Barnes, political strategist from my listener there, Michael. The bottom line is that this drama plays out as Rome burns. Non-existent growth in the economy, inflation, which is making life a misery for my viewers and listeners, open borders, shoplifting, incredibly expensive energy costs, and the return of unemployment.
Oh, yes, without a doubt. I have absolutely no doubt that Keir Starmer is going to use this to kind of push through a lot of other rather nasty little reforms, but also they never let a good crisis go to waste. It's the Labour Party mantra through and through. So, yes, of course, we're going to see so many things while everybody's looking at one direction, they're going to start doing something else over there. The most important announcement actually came from the IMF this morning, last night this morning, saying that Britain cannot afford an energy bailout. Basically saying, as I've said to you before, Mark, there is no money left. So we have to get our house in order very quickly. And that starts with booting Ed Miliband clean out of, hopefully out of the country. Maybe we could deport him. Well, because that's a national security risk.
And yet, we're in a nightmare scenario where Starmer's replacement might be Red Ed, Mr. Net Zero Ed Miliband, or it might be the ginger growler herself, the old Angela Rayner. Let's take a voice note from Laura on Starmer.
Beneath College.
We'll come to that in just a moment. Fear not, because it's all about your feedback. Amanda says, Mark and Peter, it's blatantly obvious that Starmer is not fit to run this country. I cannot understand why the security services don't at least have the power to suspend him from office during this period of investigation. Peter, what do you think is the political prognosis for the Prime Minister? Piers Pottinger, who's a very experienced PR executive who's looked after a number of politicians and prime ministers, thinks Starmer may have to resign this week. What say you?
It's a very difficult one. I listened to that interview with Piers and I take his advice very, very seriously. He's a man with great experience. The problem is, I think Piers might be judging this by the old rules. I don't think Keir Starmer plays by the old rules. He's writing them as he's going. And he's using whatever's left as a battering, as a shield to protect himself. Look at how he uses cabinet secretaries.
He knows no shame. He is impervious to shame.
100%.
He's shameless.
Yeah, let us not forget. With the winter fuel allowance, remember that the policy impact paper did not go across his desk. He's not afraid to be this person in public because he thinks he's doing the right thing. That makes him infinitely more dangerous, in my opinion, because a moron with a moral purpose is a very dangerous thing in politics. But I will say, I will have to wait to see till what he says in the statement. And I think that will depend on kind of how much support he's actually been managed to garner behind the scenes. Louise Hay, I don't know if you remember her, she was the one who got found out with 2 dodgy phones, if all the rest of it. She's about to give some kind of economic policy.
She's got more mobile phones than the Apple Store.
Exactly, but she's about to give some kind of policy statement that's about to unite the Labour Party. So who is she working on behalf of? We're starting to see a lot of breaks in the Labour machine. And if Keir Starmer, like I said, threatens that general election, it all snaps back into place. Because as I listened to your voice note with the conversation with Alan, the one thing you have to remember is if they lose the whip before the election, they lose all money, all support from the Labour machine. So they would be out in the cold even more. So he's got the loyalty of the backbenchers. Because if you kind of had them as a kind of non-actor, they're not affiliated with the Labour Party, they've had the whip removed, they lose the kind of campaign strategy, campaign support. That's the last thing they can need. So it's one of those kind of, he's got them in both ends, really. Keep their jobs overall, but at least stick in the job long enough to at least fight to keep your job. It's a very smart strategy, I have to admit. Whether it's deliberate, I don't know, but knowing Keir Starmer, it's probably not.
Carmel in Aberdeenshire. Good morning, Mark and Peter. It's not just that Keir Starmer is not fit to govern. Clearly, the entire Labour government is not fit to govern. Their incompetence and duplicity is off the scale. Annie in Lincolnshire, regarding Starmer, when he goes and we get some other numpty in charge, what's going to happen? The money men will not loan us any more money, and that will trigger a general election. Annie, what an interesting point. Your view, Annie, is one that's shared by Nigel Paul Farage. Are you familiar with his work? Nigel Paul Farage is a leader of Reform UK, and he believes, Peter, that there could be a general election in 2027 because of an economic crisis. He's not wrong. There's definitely a chance.
There's definitely a chance, but the problem is, and I always say this, you're relying on the Labour Party to understand what the guilt markets even are and why they're in freefall, because they'll do the kind of Green Party narrative of it's just rich people taking your money. They caused this crisis. Look how Rachel Reeves has blamed absolutely everybody for the economic mess that we're in. She's jumped on the Iran war as a kind of excuse for 0% growth in January, despite the fact all that forecast is taken well before the Iran war even started. They're not afraid to be that shameless. So, yes, in theory, I agree with Farage that actually, and there's a phrase you thought I'd never say, that actually, there could be an economic crisis that causes the general election. However, you're relying on people to be honest about the economic situation that we're in, and that's a big stretch at the moment.
Of course, Rachel from Accounts, Rachel Reeves, wants to blame everyone and everything for the failure of the economy, right? She's blaming the war in Iran. She's blaming Trump's tariffs. She's blaming Brexit. What's next? The Battle of Hastings? The French Revolution? Let's take a voice note from Laura.
Morning, Mark. Laura in Wiltshire. The problem is that Starmer is an utterly shameless narcissist. And I think he genuinely believes he's doing the right thing. I think he genuinely manages to persuade himself with his lawyer chat inside his own head that he is right and he's done nothing wrong. And I think he will hang on by his fingernails, and it's going to take some other mechanism to get him out. He will not have the honour to resign. But as you say, thank goodness he's got such an honest and genuine relationship with his wife that he'll have her loving arms to fall back into.
Correct.
Anyway, great show.
Thank you, Laura. What a well-delivered voice note that was. Great points. And I think Laura could do voiceovers. Wasn't that a smooth voice? Phil Dave is the executive producer of the show and a talk star. What a voice. Laura, thank you for that. You've all got a gorgeous voice, because I'll tell you why I love the voice notes. I'll tell you why I love the messages and why I love the calls. Is because you're super intelligent, you live in the real world, you've got common sense, you're honest, you're authentic, you're real, and you are right. That is why I love democracy, and that is why I love the voice of the people, because you get it, I get it, those that govern us don't. Like, you get the fact that in an energy crisis, it might be quite a good idea to drill for the oil and gas on our own shores. You get it, I get it. You would think that border control is there for a reason, and that if someone enters the country illegally, they are detained, locked up straight away. You get it, I get it. Those that govern us do not. You would think, wouldn't you, that if taxes get so high, it's going to kill the economy. You get it, I get it, they do not. That's why I love the voice notes, the calls, and the text messages. What about this, though, Peter Barnes? So Keir Starmer is exploring a Brexit deal that would align Britain with the EU's single market for goods. Is that what the country needs?
Absolutely not. Why on earth we should attach ourselves to a dying, rotten institution that can't even pass its own credibility checks on fraud and openness and transparency is absolutely laughable. Though thinking about it, Starmer might seem right at home with that lot if you think about it. But yet again, of course he's going to want to go into the EU because he doesn't have to make a decision. That's the big point about the European Union. You cede all your sovereignty. You cede your decision-making ability. He is nothing but a manager then. He goes back to just doing as he's told by the higher-ups who are a lot higher than he is in the European Union. So this is part of it, but also I do think that it's been a long time coming, actually. A lot of us thought this might have happened a little bit quicker, but I suppose events rather got in the way. But it is interesting to see how far he's willing to push this. But how much are the EU willing to tolerate of the kind of the sick man of Europe wandering into an even sicker European Union? That is the big question, is how much do the European Union actually want us? Or would they rather keep us on the periphery as a source of kind of a source of impact they could blame things on, rather than actually have us in the tent? I think that's a bigger question we should actually be asking here.
What a brilliant set of points. Peter, we always love having you on the show. You don't pull your punches, and on the money as always. My thanks to Peter Barnes, political strategist. Is Starmer fit to be the Prime Minister of this country? You are listening to Talk Breakfast.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
There you are. Well, listen, folks, I'll tell you that our podcast offering is outstanding. Something that's going to make it to the podcast today is my Dolan's Dispatch. I'll be dealing with Keir Starmer in no uncertain terms in just half an hour's time. Meanwhile, Ireland is boiling over. Fuel fury has brought roads to a standstill, rattled the government and unleashed a deeper national anger about who pays, who decides and who the country is really for. This is no longer just about diesel and petrol. It's about immigration, identity and a political class that looks badly exposed. Let's get a reaction now from Paul Trevod, who is a political commentator, restaurant owner and co-host of the incredibly popular and successful The Irish Question podcast. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning, Mark, and to all your viewers. How are you?
Very well indeed. What started as anger about the cost of fuel has somewhat exploded beyond that.
Yeah, it even goes deeper than that. This was really nothing to do with the price of fuel. That was kind of like the tipping point. This is 6 years of failed government policies, an Irish government that's neglected and, completely ignored the people of Ireland. We had our tourism industry decimated during COVID for one of the longest lockdowns in the world. We then came out of that. We had mass legal and illegal immigration flood into the country that took away a load more of our tourist accommodation. We had the threatening of 200,000 cattle being culled with the price of fertilizer go through the roof. We had so many ridiculous policies that have come in here, and people were voicing concern over the last 5-6 years, genuine concern. Cost of living crisis with businesses going bust every single day, and a government that just completely blanked us. And what we saw last week here was, basically a nation come to a standstill because the incredible farmers and hauliers of Ireland stood up and said, look, enough is enough. We need to do something about this. And they basically shut the whole system down. And a government, it's a bit like the schoolyard bully, Mark. When you go into school every day and you get a smack across the face from the bully, one day you wake up and you realise, I might as well just try and smack him first because I'm going to get hit anyway. And that's what the people of Ireland did to the Irish government. And they, like all bullies, panicked.
So tell us about this cull of Irish cattle. It seems extraordinary given the importance to the Irish economy of farming.
Well, we had a genius party involved with the coalition with the Irish government in the last, before the last general election, called the Green Party. I think you guys have them there too.
Yeah.
And apparently they came up with this amazing idea that only Irish cows' farts affect the ozone layer and affect the climate. So we're going to cull 200,000 of them and import them from Brazil instead.
Sorry, did you say that the Irish have culled 200,000 cattle?
That's what they're trying to get our farmers to do.
This is extraordinary. And have some of the cattle already been destroyed?
Yeah, and when we think about it, it's like, think of the logic of what they're saying here. They're saying cull the Irish cattle and import the rest from Brazil. I mean, how will Brazilian beef get into Ireland? Thankfully, our Irish farmers stood up to this, again, insane policy and have put it on the long finger. But it's something that they really want to push through. And you got to ask yourself, I was listening, very good interview there with you just a few minutes ago. You seem to have the exact same problems. All this seems to be coming from a higher, there's no way the Irish government and Irish politicians don't realize what they're doing is wrong. So they're being told to do this from higher levels. And ultimately, it's the Irish people that are suffering. And what we saw last week was just people turning around going, like, that's it. We have to stand up and defend ourselves here because this is just getting out of hand.
Well, it's utter insanity. And I doubt that Brazilian meat is produced with the high ethical and environmental standards of Irish meat. And the other issue is that the cost and the carbon footprint of shipping that Brazilian meat to Ireland, you couldn't make it up, could you? It would be the equivalent of Saudi Arabia importing sand.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good analogy of it. But again, that just shows you the level of competence that we have in government right now, because the carbon footprint would disappear from us and be passed on to Brazil if we bring in their beef. We are known the world over for our produce, from our beef, from our lamb, from our fish, from everything that we have here in Ireland.
Butter, cheese, Guinness.
Absolutely. And you know what? Most importantly, Mark, the crack. Nobody can replicate the crack that you have when you come here on holidays in Ireland. Because there's one day in the year when every single person the world over wishes that they were Irish on St. Patrick's Day. And no amount of marketing or anything can ever change that. And that's down to the people of Ireland that give you an incredible welcome every time you come here.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned St. Patrick's Day. I'm a Dolan myself. My late father from Cavan, my mother from Drogheda in Louth, the Wee County, which is massive for dairy farming. And so I'm a proud Irishman as well as a proud Brit. Can we talk about national identity? How has Irish national identity been impacted by high immigration?
Well, we had a former Taoiseach by the name of Leo Varadkar who turned around and said nobody gets to veto who comes into their towns or villages, but apparently the Irish government do. And what we've seen was a government that failed to do a single feasibility study on how many people we can bring into small towns and villages throughout Ireland without dramatically altering the dynamics of that town and village. As a result, we have had hundreds and in some towns, thousands of people from other countries that we know nothing about, mostly single men, to flood into these towns and villages. And that has had a dramatic effect. It's the same in the UK. I know because I'm watching everything that's going on.
Yeah.
And we had a government that turned around and tried to say that the farmers and the hauliers last week are being influenced by far-right people such as Tommy Robinson. And you're turning around and you wonder why the Irish people are getting their backs up. Most of the farmers or hauliers have no idea who this person is, yet they have to, as always, label the person, the Irish person who's trying to stand up. Like they've done it to me for years. I'm a racist, I'm a fascist, I'm a transphobe, homophobe, because anybody who stands up with a genuine concern as to what's happening in their country and is genuinely passionate about their country has to be labeled because they lack the ability to be able to debate with you properly.
And the issue you've got for Ireland is it's a relatively small, culturally, religiously and population-wise homogenous population, and therefore it will feel more keenly the impact of rapid immigration, perhaps even more so than, for example, the UK, especially if you've got, for example, Paul, it was my understanding, a small town in Clare which doubled overnight as a result of immigration.
Yeah, no, you're 100%, Mark. And we go into this in great detail in our podcast in The Irish Question, where we're basically saying, like, it's around the 1980s, Ireland was still very much in poverty. It was only from the mid-80s onwards that we experienced our Celtic tiger.
Correct.
And our boom. So we had we used to be afraid of the parish priest. We used to be afraid of the local politician because that's just the way Ireland was. And now all of a sudden you bring in so many different people with so many different cultures and such a different religious background. Of course that's going to affect. And you can't blame the Irish people to turn around because the government have turned around and said, listen, our current Taoiseach, Micheál Martin, said there's no such thing as an Indigenous Irish person, basically referring to us all as mongrels. And the new Irish people will be the ones who will determine the future history of our nation. So
well, that's a disgusting thing to say.
Yeah, what do you expect
of people? I mean, that is gaslighting a population to say there's no such thing as being Irish. How dare you? How dare you say that to my late father, Seamus Dolan, whose, for generations, family emanated from Cavan, and my mother, the Russells in Drogheda.
Yeah, I mean, and it goes even deeper than this again, Mark. Last October, November, coming up to our vote. At no stage did they turn around and say, listen, our policy is going to be to increase mass immigration. Our policy is going to bring in gender ideology into schools and force your kids to learn it. They're now talking about removing communion and confirmation from school time to do it after school so that we don't offend anyone that's come into the country. Now, at some stage, you have to turn around and say, listen, lads, this is not the direction our country should be going in. I'm all in favor of people from anywhere coming here that, contribute generously and contribute to society here in the country by working and doing and getting involved in the community. But at some stage, when you bring in so many people that literally just seem to be hanging around doing nothing, and the Irish taxpayer is paying for that, our immigration bill, Mark, is over €6 billion per annum. And then we're told we don't have enough money to cut taxation for the Irish people. We don't have enough money to improve the services here for the Irish people. At some stage, you got to turn around and go, listen, hang on a second, something is seriously wrong here.
This is a relatively small elite level population, by the way. I think you can agree, Paul, you're included in this, that the Irish people have always essentially overperformed, punch above their weight as a country globally, whether it's in industry, diplomacy, literature, art, banking, you name it. The Irish contribution to human history is quite extraordinary, disproportionate to its size, but that legacy is under threat, isn't it? I mean, I'm looking at the immigration numbers at the moment. 2023, 141,000 immigrants. 2024, 150,000 in a relatively small country. That doesn't end well.
No, and if we continue that trend, well, then it doesn't take a genius again to work out the stats as to where we're going to be in 10 years' time. Now, as you said, we punch above our weight in all kinds of society throughout the world because of the Irish people do. But you know, at what stage do we have to see another monumental screw up by an Irish government that will be gone in 3 or 4 years' time, and for the Irish people to be left behind to try and clean it up, to turn around and say, we were right and the government were wrong? Because that's exactly what's going to happen. And you can't keep putting us down by saying, listen, stop being racist, stop being fascist, stop saying these kind of things, because the Irish people just have to suck it up and deal with it. That's not going to end well with the people of Ireland.
Paul, briefly, if you can Ireland be saved, or is the damage done?
No, of course Ireland can be saved, because what we saw last week was incredible rise of, I don't think people realise just how amazing farmers and hauliers are in Ireland, in England, throughout the UK and all across. Without them, we have nothing. And for these people to stand up and realise that they're on the brink of collapse, and to get the support, the government tried to say that, yeah, there was only a couple of Irish people behind it. The entire nation stood beside the farmers and the hauliers when they shut down. It affected my business by shutting down towns, people not being able to travel, but I do it all again tomorrow because they were right. And now we know that. And I think we're one, maybe 1.5 to 2 crises maximum away for people to fully revolt and stand up against this Irish government once and for all, because we've just had it.
Ireland's crisis is our crisis too, which is why I would urge you to take a listen to the Irish Question podcast. Its co-host is Paul Trevod. Paul, will catch up soon. Thank you for a very important and very enlightening conversation. Let's continue the issue that affects our viewers and listeners right now, though. Starmer, is he fit to be Prime Minister? Your call's next.
Join me, Ian Collins, every weekday.
Donald Trump has closed the Strait of Hormuz. This is curious, since the whole point of this part of the war, well, at least as I thought it, or saw it, was to reopen it. Can anybody explain that? You are not a worthy citizen. You couldn't even spot a murderer in your own house. Well, you could. You just didn't tell anyone about it. Everything you need to know. All the breaking news right here on Talk.
Only at the home of common sense.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
The Prime Minister, is he fit to run the country? Here is a voice note from Damon.
Good morning, Mark. Damon from Wigan. Keir Starmer has asked to go over this vetting process. I've been vetted for my jobs, the fire service, etc. And if the police picked up on something on my vetting, they would tell the company, the service, and I'd be gone. It's Starmer seriously telling us that they knew, but they didn't tell him. It's a cover-up from their dot, same as all the others are all cover-ups. He needs to go. The man is pathetic. He's doing nothing but damaging to Britain. And I think Labour needs to call a general election and just go into the shade, because they're not going to be around for years. It's ridiculous. He needs to go. He's an out-and-out liar. And if I saw him, I would just tell him exactly what I thought about him. But he doesn't mix with us, the little people. Thank you, Mark.
Damon, I think you're right. He's an elitist. He's a bureaucrat himself, a pen pusher, and, in my view, a disgraced ex-lawyer. Let's take a voice note from Jeff.
Morning, Mark. Jeff in Birmingham. Great show. This vetting farce has been going on for weeks now, Mark. And all of a sudden, a few days before he's due to address the House of Parliament, they come up with a document that proves he didn't know or he wasn't told. Very strange, in my opinion, Mark. And this man will never, ever resign. It's taken him too many years to get his snout buried deep in the trough. I think we're stuck with him, unfortunately. Nice one, Mark. See you, mate.
Thank you. And last but not least for now, here is a voice note from Pete.
Morning, Mark. Pete from Lincolnshire. Enjoying the show. Regarding Starmer and how long's he got? Well, Starmer and the Labour Party, or the MPs, they're almost inexplicably linked in some sort of death spiral to the next general election. Bit like two sort of, you might see on a David Attenborough documentary where two birds are sort of clung together on claws and they're spiralling towards the ground, neither wanting to let go. And that's really where we are, because you've got to remember, at the end of the day, Starmer potentially has got the trump card. All he has to say to the party is, you want to get rid of me? We're going to go for a general election and you're all going to lose your jobs, not just me. So that's how I see it. I think Starmer is going to potentially play that trump card. Why he's not done that maybe up to now, if he wants to drive one of his policies through and the party have then said, no, we want you to change it, otherwise we're going to ditch you. Why he's then not played that, I don't really know. But that's where I see it. And that's the cat saying good morning, by the way. Great show. Cheers.
Nice to hear from the cat, and great common sense from Pete. Neil is in Kent. Morning, Neil. Welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Morning. I have a slightly different view with the same result. I don't believe that Starmer should go. I think the Labour Party haven't earned the right to change the leader and try and reset. I think he should stay there and then eventually call the general election after May the 7th when he's destroyed.
Well, that's interesting. So you'd like him to remain in post and to serve out his term? What's your idea, Neil?
I don't think he will serve out his term. I don't think the country will allow the Labour Party to serve out their term. I actually think, though, that changing the leader will just give the Labour Party more time in power, and they'll start saying, oh, it was Starmer, we've reset, we're starting again, and we'll just stay on this terrible loop downwards.
Well, yes, and Neil, you raise an interesting point, because a new leader gives them a stay of execution, and I think your argument is that means another 2 or 3 years of misery for our viewers and listeners. Do you think that actually we should always have a general election if the Prime Minister changes?
I think at this stage in Parliament, absolutely. I mean, they've got another 3 years to go. Changing the leader is absolutely wrong. It allows them to say, oh, it was my fault, it was the previous Prime Minister. I think also, though, if you've served a 5-year term and you get into year 4 and the leader of the time says, look, I'm not going to stay anymore, they should be allowed then to change the leader to go into a general election appropriately. I mean, we saw it with the Conservatives, changing leader, and the country just didn't appreciate that. And we'll do the same again. Absolutely, they're going to do very, very badly, I believe, on May the 7th. They'll change the leader. Potentially before that, that leader will then suffer and be changed again, and we'll just go through the same loop as we did with the Conservatives. Continual late changes of leadership just mean reset after reset after reset, and the same policies effectively coming through, trashing the country.
Neil, great call. I think you're right, and I'm very concerned about the economy if and when Starmer falls, because if Red Ed Miliband gets in, he's more left-wing than Starmer. He'll double down on net zero, which is going to impact our energy supply and the cost of energy, which is a central part of our economy and one of the main reasons why we've got inflation. If Angela Rayner gets in, well, she'll have the backing of the trade unions, and they will want their pound of flesh. So good luck having a country that lives within its means if the ginger growler herself is in number 10. Good luck with that. John's in Burnley. Morning, John.
Good morning, Mark. How are you?
I'm very well. Lovely to have you on the line. How are the conditions in Burnley at the moment? Has the sun made an appearance?
It has. Just as you said that, it just popped through clouds then. So, yeah, it's looking all right.
There you go. Well, there's not too much to be cheery about this morning, is there?
No, not at all. Not in UK anymore. Since Labour's got in, no. I'll just have to agree with one of your voice callers. And there's no way. I know everybody keeps saying that he should go. They think he's going to go. Mark, this guy, this Prime Minister, will not leave. He is so power hungry. This man. He will have to be dragged out to number 10 with his fingers prized off number 10 door. There is no way he will just leave. He don't mind. See, we have to think about what Labour does not care what English citizens think. At the end of the day, they've tried to overturn Brexit. They tried to cancel local elections. Yeah. They've tried to, all the grooming gang scandal, they tried to cover all that. Everything they do not care what the English people think.
Chagos Islands, jury trials, digital ID, pensioners, farmers.
Yeah, it just goes on, Mark, doesn't it? It goes on and on. They do not care about it. All they care about is their, woke, radical leftist ideology and power on what they want to do. It's not for our benefit, it's what they want to impose on us. And this man, they will not get him out of there. He will stay there till the very last end.
John, what do you think will happen then? You think Starmer maybe clings on until next year?
Yeah, I just think they'll just keep coming out like they've always been doing since they've got in power. They'll just keep on making excuses, just keep on lying. It's everyone else's fault. Sack a few people, and just carry on as normal and just hope that it'll all just blow over. But I think that's what's going to happen. I think this man will stay there because he's just power hungry. He'll stay there right till the very end, till next election comes.
And John, this wouldn't happen in a normal workplace.
I know, it blows my mind. Do you know, Mark, I stopped voting Labour back in Tony Blair days. I could see all the way back then what was going on. And I had a couple of friends who voted Labour, and I was always a bit curious. And I said to him, why did you vote Labour? I can't get my head around it. And his answer was, because of the votes. He said he was going to stop the votes. And I said, what, and you believe that? You actually believed him because of that? I said, all you have to do is watch him in Parliament when they're all holding big signs up saying migrants welcome. That says everything you needed to know there and then, didn't it?
Yeah, John, before I let you go, can a defence be made of Starmer and this government that it was the Tories that did most of the damage, the Boris wave, illegal immigration, net zero?
Oh, yeah, they're all the same. Tories, Labour, all of it. We just need a complete reset with this Parliament. Yeah. Absolutely. They all need to just go. And then, so hopefully, next election, everybody's going to make the right decision this time and just get them all out.
And what if you're going to just essentially wipe out the establishment, what's the alternative? What's the replacement? Is it reform?
Reform for me, yeah, this time, absolutely.
And why?
Absolutely.
What gives you confidence, John, that old Farage will shake things up?
Well, you've got to think our country. Like I'm 50 years old now, so I've seen Labour and Tories and what they've done right up to my day now. I've seen these two in power and what they've done to this country. Reform's never been in power yet, so you can't judge them because they've not even been in power. So why not give them a try? It upsets the two parties because they know now if Farage gets in, they're going to have to start listening to the people more, aren't they? Because they can't just do what they want anymore now because there's another party on the backside, basically, isn't there?
Yeah.
So let's get it. Let's hopefully they get in. Let's give them a try, and then if they end up doing the same and not listening to the people, then we just get them out as well. But these two parties now, enough's enough. They've just completely ignored us all the way for I don't know how many years, and country now is just unrecognisable because of these two parties. Let's just have a fresh, let's give them a go, and let's see what happens.
Well, John, I think you've put your finger on it. The Uniparty, Tories and Labour have ignored the wishes, the will, and the best interests of the British people. That's what John said over and over again. They've not listened to us. Holier than thou. They know better. Their own agenda, EU, open borders, net zero, none of that in the public interest. And no one voted for it. Colin's in Essex. Good morning, Colin.
Good morning, Mark. Your last one you just had on, I just want to agree with everything he said.
Yeah, John in Burnley. Talk sense, didn't he?
Yeah. And the thing I would like to say is pensioners, anything over 12.5 grand, they pay tax on.
Yeah.
So two people, 25 grand. Any more pension that you get taxed on. The people on benefits, they can earn up to 45, 50 grand with a couple of kids or 3 kids, and you've got to earn 70, 75 grand to end up with them. Why? I know it's not a lot, but why not tax that? Get the money back off of them. Everyone else is paying the tax while they're sitting at home doing nothing, and the other people going out to work. Some of them on minimum wage as well, 2 people. They haven't got no money to go and enjoy themselves anymore.
Brilliant call. Colin, I can't disagree. Apologies, the line's not the best, but you've raised also an interesting set of points. It's easy to forget, isn't it, talking to Colin and talking to John and all of you watching and listening, that whilst you got this scandal around Peter Mandelson, our people are suffering. We have inflation, which is a tax on everyone. You need to get a mortgage now when you go into your local Sainsbury's and your Tesco and your Co-op. It's absolutely eye-watering. It's a £5 for a tub of yoghurt now. The energy bills, the cost of filling up your car at the petrol station. My little 125 scooter was £7 to fill up because it's a hairdryer on wheels. Now it's a tenner. This is real-world problems, and yet we're talking about this soap opera. Let's get a voice note from Ian.
Talk. Hi, Mark. It's Ian from East Grinstead. In answer to your question, is Starmer fit for Prime Minister? No, he isn't. But unfortunately, if you look at history, all of our politicians have no integrity anymore. He won't resign, like none of them resign, because they think they're entitled to do whatever they want to do, break the rules or whatever, and they're not accountable to anyone. So no, he won't resign because he has no integrity.
No integrity is a very, very strong line, and I can't disagree. Integrity is right. Starmer, is he fit to be Prime Minister? Is it safe for this country, for this man who nobody believes, to still be in number 10? Surely that's a national security issue, notwithstanding the fact that the economy is collapsing, unemployment's back, inflation, energy crisis, open borders. Dolan's dispatch is coming next. It's all about Starmer. Don't go anywhere.
This is a scandal, as you say. If the Prime Minister's knowingly lied, any minister, whether it's the most important one, the Prime Minister, or the most junior minister, lying to the House of Commons is a capital offence and would have to go. And if the officials have lied when they're advising you, they should go.
On the 10th of September, the Prime Minister misled Parliament by saying the full due process was followed. If Mandelson failed the security vetting, full due process was not followed. Misleading Parliament is a resigning offence.
The Ambassador has repeatedly expressed his deep regret for his association with him. He's right to do so. I have confidence in him, and he's playing an important role in the UK-US relationship.
It was clear that the Prime Minister wanted to make this appointment himself, and had therefore I understand that the FCDO was informed of his decision and acted upon it, and via the Foreign Secretary sought and obtained the King's approval for the appointment.
Even the expectation that Ollie Roberts felt quite comfortable, this is what we're being asked to believe.
Yes.
To hold back this information that he knew that he had that Mandelson had failed the vetting process, and that at no stage that it was necessary to tell the Prime Minister.
It's unbelievable. So he either knew and lied on this issue, or he didn't know, and that's just as bad.
Can the Prime Minister tell us, did the official security vetting he received mention Mandelson's ongoing relationship with the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein?
So clear. Prime Minister.
Yes, it did.
The Prime Minister, in a big speech in Hastings, said very clearly that Mandelson had passed. He said in the House of Commons that the vetting had revealed an ongoing relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, but not the extent of it. So you've got the Prime Minister publicly saying that the vetting had been done and that he knew about it, and now claiming he didn't know about it, he didn't know there'd been a rejection.
I think anybody who has been following the news over the past few months would have been surprised if Peter Mandelson had passed his vetting. The Prime Minister decided to appoint Peter Mandelson. The Prime Minister accepted that the process was going to be
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a very happy Sunday morning. Mark Dolan on Talk Breakfast. Delighted to say I'm with you all of this coming week. I'm in for Ian Collins 1 till 4 in the afternoon. Join me then. We've got a very big hour to come. Dolan's Dispatch on the way. I'll be dealing with Keir Starmer in no uncertain terms. A crisis at number 10. How much did the PM know about Peter Mandelson's failure to pass security vetting? Did he mislead Parliament? Is he toast? How long has he got? And our question this morning is a simple one. Is Sir Keir Starmer fit to be Prime Minister? My number is 03444 499 1000. Text the word TALK in your message to 87222 or leave us a voice note and let's talk. You can hear us on the radio, DAB+, in-app and online. Lovely to be on your radio, in the kitchen, in the bedroom, in the living room, in the car, whatever you're up to on a Sunday morning. You can also watch the show because this is a TV show now. And you can see my amazing guests and watch Dolan's Dispatch. All you do is head to YouTube and search up Talk. You literally search Talk, up we pop. And I'm delighted to say that Nehar is directing our TV output today. Nehar isn't normally with us at the weekend, but her gambling debts are now so bad. PaddyPower.com, I'm afraid. William Hill, she's a sucker. It's the Grand National. You name it, she'll bet on it. So thank God she's got bills to pay because she's one of the finest in the country. And speaking of which, our executive producer is Talk star Phil Dave, pressing the buttons. Engineer Dave as well. So much to get through. Let's talk. And as always, at this time, every Friday, Saturday and Sunday on Talk Breakfast, it's time for Dolan's Dispatch. None of this adds up. The Mandelson scandal is a mystery that would have Inspector Morse scratching his head. It would have Sherlock Holmes choking on his pipe. it would have Miss Marple spitting out her afternoon tea. What is going on? None of it adds up. If the chief civil servant in the Foreign Office, Ollie Robbins, was not allowed to tell the Prime Minister that Mandelson failed security vetting, why then has he been fired for not telling the Prime Minister that Mandelson failed security vetting? It doesn't add up. How can he be fired for not doing something that he wasn't allowed to do? How can the Prime Minister not have known about all of this last September when one of the country's finest political journalists, a very good friend of mine, David Maddox, contacted Number 10 to reveal that he had the story? He then splashed it on the front page of the Independent newspaper. None of this adds up. Let me tell you that the greatest priority for the Number 10 press machine is to scour every inch of every newspaper every day. You don't think that one of Starmer's spin doctors, or indeed his chief of staff, would have knocked on the boss's door and said, Prime Minister, front page news, Mandelson failed vetting. It was on the front page of the Independent newspaper on September the 12th of last year, and yet Starmer only finds out this Tuesday. Do me a favour. None of this passes the smell test. You know it and I know it. None of it adds up because either the Prime Minister knew or he should have known. And in politics, that distinction does not save you. Which takes us to the other great mystery. Why did Mandelson need vetting at all? This is a guy that had been forced to resign from the cabinet on 2 separate occasions and was a known friend of disgraced paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. So there's your security vetting, folks. The guys are wrong and computer says no. You would have vetoed that decision if you were hiring in your place of work. Even the head of recruitment at your local Tesco Express would veto such a character. He wouldn't even make it to the vegetable aisle. This is a man with serious baggage in Mandelson, put forward for one of the most important diplomatic roles in the world. The vetting process, we're told, was a no. They said no, and of course they were right about that. The refusal was then overridden. You see, that is at the heart of this, is whatever Ollie Robbins did or didn't tell the Prime Minister, Number 10 and Starmer wanted Mandelson. They wanted him at all costs. Now, of course, Starmer is the consummate lawyer, and he's protected himself. There's no direct paper trail at the moment, and he can claim that he knew nothing. But you and I know the truth. The Prime Minister said, in effect, that he didn't know. A senior civil servant is out of the door. Of course, none of it adds up. Leadership is not about what you say in Parliament. It's about what you know. It's about what you ask. It's about what you check. And it's about what you chose to ignore. And right now, the British public is being asked to believe a version of events that stretches credibility to breaking point. It was on the front page of the Independent newspaper in September of last year, and Starmer didn't know. McSweeney or any of his press team didn't pop upstairs to Number 10 in the flat, knock on the door and say, boss, this guy, old Mandelson, is a wrong 'un. Either the Prime Minister knew and failed to tell the truth, or he did not and is not in control. And when those are your only 2 options, you don't just have a communications problem, you have a credibility problem and a leadership problem too. Forget about Miss Marple, Inspector Morse and Sherlock Holmes. The clues are there. Even Inspector Clouseau could tell you that Starmer is guilty as charged, and he's going down. 0344 499 1000. Your reaction. I believe the Prime Minister is lying. Now, I don't have the tangible evidence to prove that, and I think that's because he's a good lawyer. And I suspect it's like a mafia boss, like Don Corleone. Do you remember that guy from The Godfather? You're talking to me. You're swimming with the fishes. Do you remember that guy? We'd have like the sort of orange peel in his mouth or whatever, or the loo roll, whatever made his cheeks all chuggy like that. But it's like a mafia boss that says, right, you do a hit job, you take out my enemy, but I don't want to know anything about it, and there cannot be a paper trail. that connects me to this. I think that's what Starmer's done. I think he's covered his tracks. I think he knew that Mandelson was a wrong 'un, and I think he knew, how can he not, that he'd failed vetting. But cleverly, his team around him insulated him from any connection to the story so that he did not have the DNA on that crime scene. But you know it, and I know it, which is why I believe that it's game over for him. Miranda is in Cumbria, which is one of the nicest parts of the world. Hello, Miranda.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well. Are you anywhere near the lakes?
I'm near Bardsey, so I'm near the beach.
You are very
Near
lucky.
Robinson.
Cumbria, it takes some beating, doesn't it?
It does, and it's sunny and the sky is blue. It's beautiful.
Well, look, Miranda, you've cheered us all up with that description of your beautiful location. What about the Prime Minister? What's your reaction to this whole story?
Well, I do think he's culpable. And I just remembered last year, there were two lads, two Christophers, who were both charged, and they were allegedly charged with spying offences. And the head of the DPP let them off, because I do think this is all related to China in the end. The head of MI5, McCallum, came out quite frustrated. He said there was enough evidence to prosecute, and he actually stated that China was a threat. At the end of the day, they took their national security ahead of economic interests. And I do think it's all related. They're always going across to China. You've got Ed Miliband, I was going to say Ed Sheeran. You've got...
If only.
Rachel Reeves, Starmer, sucking up to China. And I do think it's all part of it. I do. I think it's all related to China. I think that... And why would the head of MI5 not be able... Why could the Foreign Service... Where you've got Jonathan Murray, who's got a foot in both camps, who is related to security and Foreign Office, why couldn't he have told the Prime Minister? He's always with him, and he was always with McSweeney. It just seems like a massive pack of lies. And like you say, he's tried to insulate himself by not having a paper trail. But I think that's what it is. I do.
Yes, and Miranda, briefly, it's a little windy, so apologies if my viewers and listeners don't hear you in high fidelity, but just a quick follow-up on that. You're so right to mention China, because it was David Maddox at The Independent who broke the story in September of last year. Apparently the Prime Minister doesn't read newspapers, that's fine. So Maddox, message number 10, Miranda, and he said, it's my understanding that Mandelson's failed vetting, and it's not Epstein, it's China links. Mandelson running a PR and lobbying firm that took Chinese clients. So this is serious, right? This is not a sort of little political soap opera. This is, Miranda, national security.
It is national security, and I don't quite understand how McCallum didn't know about Mandelson and his connection with that. Quite clear, he must have known. And there was no reason, unless there's a law saying that he can't tell the Prime Minister, or whether he told Jonathan Powell, and Jonathan Powell told McSweeney, hence the phone has now disappeared. It just looks like, I mean, you probably think it's conspiracy theory, but at the end of the day, it just doesn't look good, does it?
Miranda, I love conspiracy theories because all you need is 6 months and they tend to come true. What a great call. Have a lovely day in Cumbria. You're very lucky to live there. I've got my lad just finishing up in Lancaster. What a beautiful place that is. I love this country. I love the United Kingdom, and I will fight for it. And I will use this platform to fight for it, proudly so. Paul is in Manchester, which is also, let me tell you, one of the great cities on the planet. How are you, Paul?
Good morning, Mark.
The epicentre of the Industrial Revolution. How are things in the Northwest this morning?
That's fine.
And what are your thoughts about the man that leads your country, Paul?
Okay, disaster mind Lammy.
That's a good line.
Starmer, yeah. If I was to work for Starmer and Starmer knew that I lied, he would sack me. So because he works for this country and we know that he's lied, can't he get sacked and then appeal?
Well, it's actually a very good point. And what that would do is it would bring to light more information, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Well, he'd have to produce this at his appeal, wouldn't he?
Yeah, well, I know that's exactly it.
I'd be suspended until the appeal.
Yeah. Paul, what do you think is going to happen? Phil Dave, our executive producer, has been saying, you know, how long's he got? That's like $1 million question. Do you think he could be gone this week?
Listen, every day I pray. Every day. And every time I look at the news, everything is negative about this man and our country. Everything. The world stage looks at us as a joke.
Yeah.
As, you know, come on, the benefits bill outweighs the income tax. Just look at all these things going absolutely dire. And it's this man and his ideology, it's crippling us.
It is. I mean, that's the funny thing, Paul, briefly, if you can. Yes, we've got this row over Mandelson and national security and judgment and who's lying and who's telling the truth. That's all very serious. But we've also got an economy absolutely in the toilet with my viewers and listeners struggling every day, Paul.
I struggle every day. I absolutely struggle every day. And I work and I visually see the people that are abusing our systems and they argue with me. They're arguing.
So people that are on benefits do take out more than they put in, and they're having an argument with you. You're a man who works for a living.
And I'm trying to tell them that I work and I see this corruption going on, and they're just
incompetent.
They're oblivious to it.
I mean, Paul, can you, without wishing to be too personal or impertinent, but can you give me a sense of how you struggle? You have to make tough choices with your own finances, right?
Right, so when I look at a £10 note, I don't see just a piece of paper. I see what is priority out of that £10 note.
Yeah.
My daughter needs a parent pay every week for school.
Yeah.
That she's got to have that. We don't get benefits to pay for that. I work. I'm a white working British man.
And you don't get handouts, right?
Nothing. I have what my children want. I have to provide for. There is no breakfast club for my children. If they want to eat, I feed them.
And I doubt, Paul, that you're left with too much of a surplus every month.
Well, they're the priority, and then what's left is, what's left.
Paul, can I salute you? First of all, you've made a lot of important points about the Prime Minister, and you've also shared the reality of millions of people across this country who have to make tough choices, who are suffering as a result of this government's policies. Because I'm so sorry, Rachel from Accounts, it's not the Iran war or Brexit or the Battle of Hastings or the French Revolution. It is your policies and your ruinous budgets. And as Paul pointed out, a country whose tax take doesn't cover the benefits bill. That is why we're in such trouble. Paul, your daughter is a lucky girl because she's got a legend of a dad. Call me again soon. Have a good Sunday, Paul. Briefly, Hugh, I've only got a few seconds because Annunciata Rees-Mogg is waiting in the wings. What do you think about the Mandelson scandal?
Well, my opinion basically is they're saying that this telephone has been stolen, which contains the information that everybody's looking for.
Oh, yes. Morgan McSweeney, former Chief of Staff to the Prime Minister, miraculously loses his phone.
Correct. So when the police went round and did a search on Peter Mandelson's property, one of the things that they would do, because that phone that Mandelson was using, I would assume, would be a government phone paid for by the government.
Yeah.
Mr. Mandelson should either have handed that in because it wasn't his property anymore, or the police should have confiscated it. And I'm sure if this can be revealed and brought to the surface, they will get all the information that's missing.
Hugh, that's a great point. With the clock against me, can I just ask you really briefly, Hugh, I suspect that Starmer is not long for this world politically, but Hugh, will we, the British people, ever get the truth about what actually happened?
Well, I can't really answer that. I'm just really trying to get to the point of they're on about the phone being missing and all the information that's required. And I'm sure if the police have got this, the government have got the powers to say, can we have that phone over, please, and let's have a look at it. And because it must be in the police's hands by now. It's simple. So there's no, the phone is stolen, the phone is missing, the phone is this, the phone is that.
I totally agree. Get hold of that handset. Hugh, I totally agree with you. And also, surely the mobile operator or Apple, if it was an iPhone, will have that information in the cloud or something. This is national security. I agree with you. Find that phone, because I suspect that in that device, you will have your answer. Hugh, great call. Next up, one of my favourite political commentators, Annunciata Rees-Mogg. She'll be predicting how long Starmer's got. Don't go anywhere.
crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to The Royal Tea from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
9:22. Or do you know something? What would be fantastic? And this is, can I tell you a little tip, okay, folks? If ever you work in radio or TV, and this is just the top tip, right? It's quite valuable advice. You might want to attach your microphone to your lapel, because that way you can be heard by the audience. You're welcome. I'm available for all sorts of broadcasting advice. Just hit me up. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. A response from Lynn to the discussion about Starmer. How long's he got? Is he fit to be Prime Minister? Good morning, Mark, says Lynn in Essex. Sadly, I think whether Starmer stays or goes makes no difference whatsoever. We need the Labour Party gone, and that won't happen for another 2 years at least. People think that by getting Starmer out, it will somehow improve the country, but it won't until this dreadful party is out of office. Jean in Fulham, we're talking about, is Starmer lying? How about this from Jean? Mark, come on, even Larry the cat knew. It's a very good point, but will he squeal? You're listening to Talk Breakfast live down the line. I'm delighted to welcome Annunziata Rees-Mogg, Head of Communications at Popular Conservatism. Hello, Annunziata, good to see you.
Good morning, Mark. How are you?
I'm very well indeed, and I've been itching to know what you think about this whole scandal.
Oh, well, I think your brilliant viewers and listeners have explained so much of it, that one of the biggest problems is that Keir Starmer seems to think we are all incredibly gullible and incredibly stupid. We've had lie after lie after lie, and they're demonstrable lies. They're not maybes, they're not ifs, could have happened. We know that McSweeney's phone wasn't stolen. We know it would have been backed up if it had been. We know that the ministerial code has been broken, that Keir Starmer has lied, whether inadvertently or on purpose, to the House of Commons. We know that Mandelson retained shares in Global Counsel that happened to have a massive uplift from its biggest client, that happened to work, or is a Chinese company that happened to work with the Chinese military. The Pentagon had warned about it. This whole saga stinks. We also know that civil servants knew about this weeks ago, didn't think to tell the boss, Keir Starmer, apparently, and haven't actually released the documents that they have to. It's not a choice. They absolutely have to release the documents associated with Mandelson's appointment under the humble address. It's now been over 5 weeks since we were promised the second tranche of major documents, and we've had nothing except for the scandal getting worse.
Most definitely. And of course, I'm obliged to say, Annunziata, that we cannot definitively say that Morgan McSweeney, Starmer's former chief of staff's phone, was not stolen, but you're entitled to raise an eyebrow and a question, given that public trust in this administration and this Prime Minister is now so low. We don't believe, do we, Annunziata, a word this man says?
I think it's almost impossible that either Keir Starmer is directly lying constantly, or he has lost any grip at all over not only Number 10, but the whole of the civil service and his fellow ministers. So whichever the answer is, he's not fit to be Prime Minister. The problem we've got is not that the public can't see through this. It's not that the public don't think he should go. It's that the Labour Party aren't ready for him to leave.
Yes.
They don't have anyone waiting in the wings. We saw just yesterday Andy Burnham having a secret meeting with Angela Rayner. And for anyone who hasn't seen the photograph the paparazzi got of him leaving, it's worth a look because he seems to be running out from behind a bush with a handkerchief on his head. Even Grok said that it was a disguise fail, but that he looked like he was sneaking off. They're meeting to try and stitch up who comes next. All of the potential candidates that we know of within the Labour Party have outstanding questions over their probity or their ability to stand as the next leader of the Labour Party and therefore Prime Minister. The Labour Party can't currently afford to lose Starmer, so they're protecting him in any way they can. But this is in the interests of the Labour Party. It is against the interests of the British people and of our country. And Labour has to stand up for what is right, not what will keep paying their own paychecks.
Annunziata, you are a practicing Christian. Do you make a moral judgment on this administration and this Prime Minister?
I think if you've got the highest office in the land, you have to be seen to be doing the right thing. And there is no question that people do not think that Keir Starmer is doing the right thing. They don't think he's doing things in our country's interests. They don't think he's doing them for the right reasons. I think there are big moral questions over his leadership and of this whole government, why they're doing things, what motivates them, and how they're enacting things that seem so directly anti-British when the job description is to be the leader of Great Britain and Northern Ireland.
And this is more than just a Westminster story. This is not a soap opera. There are national security elements to this, as you pointed out, given Mandelson's commercial links to the Chinese regime. That's a huge problem for someone that will go on to occupy the biggest diplomatic role in the country, which is UK ambassador to Washington. And what about David Maddox? I think that he's a key player in this story. A friend of yours, a friend of mine, the political editor of The Independent, who splashed this story in September of last year. It was front page news that Mandelson failed vetting. He reached Number 10. He's screenshotted his WhatsApp exchange with a Number 10 insider, and yet we're still supposed to believe that this information did not get back to the boss, did not get back to Starmer.
If genuinely everyone in Number 10 and Keir Starmer himself is so incurious as to where that story could have come from, why it might have appeared, what the truth was behind it, then none of them are fit to be running this country. That David Maddox got an incredible scoop, and we are expected to believe that no one at Number 10 asked anything about it. They just take us for fools, and taking very good journalists for fools is not a good move. They will keep digging, they will get to the truth, and it's one of our best institutions because of it.
Annunziata, it's my view that Sir Keir Starmer is a catastrophically bad Prime Minister. It's sad in a way that we're having this conversation because we shouldn't we, be talking about the economy, about inflation, which is making life a misery for my viewers and listeners, about the cost of fuel, of heating your home, energy supply, open borders, wokery in our public institutions, the list goes on. We should be talking about those issues. So it's my view that Starmer is a terrible Prime Minister, an awful politician, but is he a good enough lawyer to wriggle out of this one?
There may be a technicality. It will make no difference to the British people whatsoever. If I were in Labour, and I'm not, and I never have been, and I won't likely ever support them, I would make sure he went before these local elections on the 7th of May, because I think you could start after the elections with a supposed clean slate. And if we look back into history, when Tony Blair went and Gordon Brown came, there was a boost in the polls. It didn't last long, but there was an increase. And I think in Labour's interests, they should get rid of him as quickly as possible. It's like ripping off a plaster. It's best done quickly.
It's an amazing moment, though, isn't it, for the country, Annunziata, given the fact that if Starmer goes, he will likely be replaced by a more left-wing Prime Minister, such as Ed Miliband, who will double down on net zero, or Angela Rayner, who will be backed by the left of the party and by the trade unions, who will expect their pound of flesh. So quite spectacularly, things could get worse when Starmer goes.
I think they could get worse very, very quickly. But I don't think you can hang on to a Prime Minister who stinks of corruption, whatever the ultimate truth is, just because you might get something worse. Actually, I think getting someone worse, and I think Rayner and Miliband would be much worse, could speed the end of this Labour government in its entirety, that it might force us into a general election where we can start sorting things out and the British people can have their say. Labour's gone back on so many manifesto pledges. The latest we hear about today is rejoining the single market, which they specifically said they wouldn't do in their manifesto. They don't have a mandate. Keir Starmer doesn't have a mandate. The next one will have even less. They've got to go to the country. But if we get someone very left-wing, it might well mean the markets move so strongly against the UK that we have to have a general election come what may.
Now, it's a plain fact that everyone's got their favourite Rees-Mogg. Mine is Annunziata. But your brother, your slightly less successful brother, Jacob, was the former leader of the House of Commons. Of course, they jest, a very respected and very nice man and a great politician. And I think a loss to the House of Commons. Well, he was the leader of the House of Commons previously. And it's quite clear, isn't it, Annunziata, that if Sir Keir Starmer misled the House of Commons about whether or not Mandelson had received full security vetting, he needs to correct the record. It's the breach of the ministerial code. That's supposed to happen straight away. But we're told the Prime Minister had the news on Tuesday night. Believe that if you want to. He then sits through Prime Minister's questions, refuses to answer any questions, gets admonished by the Speaker of the House, and we only hear that Starmer has discovered this news on Thursday. Is that a problem?
It's a massive problem. I happen to have in front of me the ministerial code. It is of paramount importance that ministers give accurate and truthful information to Parliament, correcting any inadvertent, if you believe it's inadvertent, error at the earliest opportunity. Keir Starmer had a clear opportunity on Wednesday to apologise to the House in advance of Prime Minister's questions, where he didn't just have a problem with the Speaker. He hit the Speaker's chair. He properly lost his temper, which I also think is a sign of a weak man and one not fit to govern. But it also says ministers who knowingly mislead Parliament will be expected to offer their resignation. And in Starmer's case, he can only resign to the King. But if he had a shred of honour, he would have done so. I think there is no doubt that he has misled, inadvertently or on purpose, the House and the British people.
Annunziata, a couple of seconds left. Need to let you go as well. It's really hard to make political predictions, isn't it? I think we can both agree it's when, not if, Starmer goes. But do you care to speculate on a timeline? Could he fall on his sword this week, after May, later in the year? What's your best guess?
He's giving a statement tomorrow to the House of Commons, hopefully, and I assume it will be a delayed apology for misleading the House. But on Tuesday, Ollie Robbins is speaking to the Foreign Affairs Committee. Now, that is very important, that a lot hinges on what Ollie Robbins said. This is a man who has lost his entire career protecting Keir Starmer. He has said, I wasn't allowed to tell him. Now, everyone who's been involved in this process says that's just not true, that you can tell the result of vetting. Of course, you can't say they failed vetting because in 1993 they had a fling with a, whatever. You can't go into the detail.
Yes.
But you can give the result. He could have said and should have said he's failed vetting. It was his job to do so. So what he says to the committee on Tuesday, I think will make a big difference. But really, I'm afraid to say that with absolute sadness, this all hinges on how ready Angela Rayner, Ed Miliband, Andy Burnham, Shabana Mahmood, Wes Streeting feel to launch a campaign to replace Keir Starmer. And this will come down to internal Labour Party politics, not the interests of Great Britain and Northern Ireland.
And we were told country first, party second. Annunziata, always a deep privilege to have you on the show. Thank you for your valuable time. We'll speak soon. Annunziata Rees-Mogg is the head of communications at Popular Conservatism. So much more to come. Is Starmer still fit to be PM? How long's he got? Could he be gone by Thursday? Don't go anywhere.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast. The Prime Minister, is he fit for purpose? Is Starmer still appropriate to be leading this country? David has said, good morning, Mark. I work in financial services. If I'd lied on my CV like Reeves, I would have been fired. If I'd lost my work phone, which is recorded as I'm in a regulated role, I'd have to report it immediately. Or is it a compliance breach? It's fine for those in ultimate power in this country to avoid any censure. Unbelievable. And that's a great point, isn't it, Alex Dyke, legendary broadcaster, that in any normal workplace, the likes of Starmer would be long gone.
Yes. However, Mark, now you know me, I'm not a fan of Starmer, but I just wonder whether this could be some kind of mutiny, that he wasn't told the information.
Now, this is interesting, that he might have been stitched up.
Yes, because we're always going on about those extreme lefties on the back bench. I wonder if he's been, as you say, stitched up. I mean, it could be possible, couldn't it?
I think that's a very good point, because there is no love lost between the Parliamentary Labour Party and the Prime Minister. What an interesting thought. Has Starmer been done up like a kipper by his own party? Let's take a call on this, Alex, if we can. Derek is in Manchester. Derek, what are your thoughts on this?
Hello, Mark. Yeah, I've been listening to it, and the question being, do you think Starmer's going to go? No one's mentioned what the problem we're going to have if he does go. I mean, as bad as he is, what are we going to get next? Is it going to be David Lammy, Angela Rayner? I'm not being funny, but this is an absolute. The whole thing is chaos, and whoever takes over from the next election, you know, the people should make it clear that we want a system whereby if we ever have this problem again, we have the right to get rid of a government, because this is a joke where you're stuck with them for 5 years, regardless of how bad they are. And the other thing to say is, you know, I mean, an election manifesto, it should be a legally binding contract. You can't go and get a job and say, look, here's my CV, I've done this, I can do this, and start work, and the next day you make a total hash of it because you're sacked. It's as simple as that. And these people are getting away with murder.
What a brilliant call. Derek's right, and Derek's worried about what happens if Starmer goes. The replacement could be worse, Alex.
Well, I can't believe I'm going to say this, Mark, but it looks now like Starmer is the best of a bad bunch. Now, I never thought I would say that.
I know where you're coming from.
And I liked Wes until I found out how connected he was to Peter Mandelson. And the thing about Keir Starmer, I think, is like Harry and Meghan, and like Andrew and Fergie, and like Peter Mandelson, he doesn't read the room. Now, either he and they can't read the room, or they refuse to read the room, and I don't know which one it is, and I don't know if we're ever going to get to the bottom of this.
I think you're right. I think that Starmer has a political blind spot, and I also think he's got a human blind spot. And a lot of my callers and people that have left voice notes are saying, actually, old Starmer is a bit of a sociopath or a bit of a narcissist or something. There's no evidence to prove that's the case, but they look at his traits and they think there's something missing in this man.
Remember, John Major came across when he was talking to the electorate as quite dull, a good man, but a little bit dull. And in fact, on Spitting Image, the puppet was sprayed grey, wasn't it?
And it got greyer every week.
It did, didn't it? And he needed media training, more than he probably got. Whatever Starmer's problem is, it's beyond media training.
You're right.
That's what worries me about him. I don't think he's a bad man through and through, but I don't think he reads the room. And I think now, there's a thing in The Sun today that he's beheaded more than Henry VIII. And some of them, Sue Gray, Tim Allen, Morgan McSweeney. I mean, the people. This is the man, the Prime Minister, said he would never turn on his own staff, and he has.
Just for his survival. Phil is in Hull. Phil, you have the ear of myself and Alex Dyke. What are your thoughts on this?
Good morning, Mark.
Morning, Phil.
Yeah, I totally agree with the last chap and Annunciata. But if you've got to remember that he lied to get the job as Labour leader. He lied. And as my old mum used to call him, a damn Bob Note, because he's a phony. If you look at his track record, he throws everybody under the bus. He said the DPP, I protect my staff, I take the blame for their errors, and I congratulate them. Like the chap just said, how many people has he thrown under the bus? And who's next? He was told by a friend, or Downing Street was told by a friend of yours, David Maddox, in September. Now, on a matter so serious as this, somebody's trying to tell me that it just stopped at whoever they spoke to. It just stopped there. No, it won't pass up the line that the most serious job in diplomatic circles was being given, had been given already to him before the vetting had even finished. He'd been given because they wanted him there. And I think it's because he's got so much muck on them all, so much dirt on all of them, that they're sort of frightened, because in any walk of life, would anybody seriously give that man, Mandelson, a job with his track record? No, you wouldn't.
What a brilliant call. And Phil raises a good point. You wouldn't get a job in your local Tesco Express with old Mandelson's CV.
No, you wouldn't. And you know, if you apply for a job now and I apply for a job and anyone applies for a job, the first thing they probably do, or one of the first things they do, is they go through your social media to see what your behaviour is like in public, and are you bitter and twisted, and are you slagging people off? Well, you can imagine what it's like at this level. But Mark, I wonder if this is to do with personality. Getting back to Keir Starmer and the workings of the man, can you imagine if it was Donald Trump in the White House? He'd say, I want to know everything on Peter Mandelson.
Correct.
All the dirt on him, and I need it by midday. If Keir Starmer has gone in and said, well, I really need to know what's happening, and if you could just keep me abreast of the situation. It doesn't have the same impact. He is not a born leader. I think a lot of this has to do with personality.
Well, Alex Dyke thinks that Starmer may have been stitched up by his own party. Matthew's in Warrington. Morning, Matthew.
Morning, Mark. Morning, Alex.
Good morning.
Not working today, thank God.
Matthew, I'm glad to hear it. You put your feet up for once. The problem is, there's not much to celebrate.
I'm in the gym, mate. I've just nipped out of the gym floor.
Now, listen, have you gone cardio or have you gone resistance training today?
I've told you before, I'm waiting for a double hip replacement, so it's all weights, mate.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You're trying to get the muscle mass up. When's the hip happening?
When we stop the boats, most probably, mate.
Go on then, Matthew. Clock's against us, so what do you think?
Starmer, right? When you get take a role of leadership, like the top job, or you're the commanding officer, or you're a platoon sergeant, with that role of leadership, it becomes people trust you and they follow you and they'll go behind you. And Starmer and that Labour Party, none of them have got that. No one would follow Starmer into an empty room, never mind into a parliament, because he's weak. He's a puppet for Blair and all the people behind him pulling his strings. He's a barrister, which means he's basically a liar. He'd lie. He'll sell his soul to get a result, and he's a very, very, very poor leader. He's the worst Prime Minister we have had in the history of Parliament. And how he's responding, how he hides, is a disgrace. He's making our great country look really bad on the world stage. You know, Trump's not started on it yet. What's Trump going to say when he finds out that Mandy Mandelson failed a vetting procedure and he's in cahoots with China? Trump's not going to be happy. Well, he knew it already. That's why Starmer's having a pop at him now. So he can be, I knew it was a bit bad. He is a coward. The front Labour Party are all cowards. They're all going out. That Phillipson, she kept her head down when she backed out on the rape trials. Now all of a sudden she's bobbing her head up about parapet because she thinks it's just settled. It hasn't settled because as British people don't forget. We don't forget wrong-uns, and they're all a wrong-un. They're all a wrong-un and a disgrace. And I hope Labour never ever get voted in. What worries me is I've seen Zach Delansky doing a thing on Instagram.
Captain Cleavage.
Have you seen his little walking the dog through Parliament?
Yeah.
There's two parties have been ruling for 100 years. There's going to be two parties ruling, the Greens and Reform. He's worse than Starmer. And
he wants. Did you see Matthew online as a viral video? He wants to get rid of right-wing people.
Yeah, he doesn't want them to talk. He wants to get rid of horse racing. He wants to get rid of everything. He just wants to bring he wants it all his way. You're not allowed to have an opinion. You're not going to be like North Korea under him.
It is. The only positive, though, if he becomes Prime Minister, women will have a lovely, fantastic shape. And I think that's important. Listen, Matthew, thank you for a great call. I wish you well. Captain Cleavage. I mean, imagine him as Prime Minister. I mean, what Matthew said there, he thinks it might be Reform versus Greens, and that Labour are dead and the Tories are gone.
But the thing about being in the Green Party, you can say any crazy thing you want to grab a headline, but it's not going to push you over the line. So they can do it. It's playtime for the Greens.
The Queen will be recognised by Buckingham Palace to mark what would have been 100 years of that amazing lady's life, if she was still with us. A huge row, Jeremy Vine versus Hugh Edwards, and a beer shortage before the World Cup. So much more to get through. This is Talk.
crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in Crisis. Subscribe to The Royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
I know we're supposed to say please drink moderately, but I could certainly do with a beer today after all of the political shenanigans. But Alex Dyke, BBC local radio legend, that might be a problem.
It could be a problem for the World Cup, Mark. So this is a big story in the Sunday Telegraph today. Literally a half-page story. World Cup beer shortage looms as brewers hit by shipping crisis. Now, it's the CO2 that they're short of,
which makes the beer fizzy, right?
So yeah, but not only does it, so it gives you the bubbles, it gives you the fizz, it helps with the texture and the aroma. So we use it in food as well as beer, but it's in lots of drinks. But because of the war in Iran, there's a shortage of CO2. So the pubs have been struggling, as we know, because of business rates and taxes and how expensive everything's gone. So they really need to get bums on seats in the World Cup. They need the big screen TVs on.
Of course they do.
And they need people watching as many matches as they can. And not only will this be bad for the pubs, it will probably send people, this will also make things worse, I think. It'll send people to the supermarkets where there are already stocks, but then of course we're going to get panic buying for beer at Britain's supermarkets.
Well, that's right. I'm not too worried about the Strait of Hormuz and oil. If I can't get hold of Budweiser or Heineken, I'm in trouble.
Yeah, and
there will be a crisis in the Mark Dolan household.
Well, I'm sure.
And Mrs. Dolan may have a blockade. In fact, she has at the moment. She's seen a doctor about it tomorrow.
Well, the thing is that
she doesn't eat enough vegetables.
It's a little bit like you are funny. You are too funny.
I'm going to get in trouble.
Yeah, you will when you get home. I thought that was a bit too far, Mark. I don't mind you having a joke, but I think that was a bit too far.
Can I say that I've got a very healthy, robust marriage, exactly like the Prime Minister, who's very in love with Mrs. Starmer, and there are no other people in that relationship.
I've heard you talking about that.
I'm happy for
that this morning.
It's good.
So, so this is a problem because, like the Grand National, you get people who bet on a horse for the Grand National who aren't regular gamblers.
Yes.
And you get your fair weather football fans who like to drink. It's the summer. They like to have a barbecue. So this could be serious. We keep our fingers crossed. It's not.
Most definitely. Where should we go next?
What about the Queen? So this is a nice piece in the Mirror today, Sunday Mirror. It's page, well, I can't see well. It's page 10 and page 11. And I love this headline, "Not a Queen, the Queen." And I was listening to your Australian guest earlier,
Alexandra Marshall,
saying how the Queen in Australia is still the most popular royal. I think she always will be.
Yeah.
It's a lovely piece in the Mirror.
We miss her, don't we? I don't think she's been replaced.
No, and we've got, whatever you think about Trump, he's not very presidential, is he? He's not big on occasion. And we've got that with Starmer, and the royal family seem to have slipped really badly in the ratings with Harry and Andrew and all the rest of it. So I think we're always going to look up to the Queen because we've got no one like her.
No, I totally agree. May God bless her and may she rest in peace. What about Jeremy Vine's rather potent views about Hugh Edwards?
Yeah, so this is a story, Mark, in the Daily Star today, and basically what he's saying is he was a bully. Jeremy Vine is saying that Hugh Edwards was a bully, and he's saying that Martin Clunes did a really good job in that it was kind of like a docudrama, really,
yes,
wasn't it?
It was a bit like the Post Office drama, wasn't it?
It was.
So it was rooted in truth and reality.
Yeah.
but played by actors.
And when I heard that Martin Clunes was going to be playing Hugh Edwards, I thought, he looks nothing like him.
Yeah.
But boy, oh boy, he became him, didn't he?
Yeah, it was a great, great performance, I've got to say. And isn't it amazing that we watched Hugh Edwards for years on our tellies, we trusted him with our every word, and he proved to be such a problematic individual.
Yes, like quite a few before him. But anyway, so the headline is Jeremy Vine has branded Hugh Edwards a bully. It's kind of a bit of a shame that we didn't know that before.
Well, I agree with you there. Is there anything about the culture of the BBC that enables someone like Hugh Edwards, do you think? Because you were at the BBC for a long, long time, very successful in local radio at the BBC. Is there something about the way the big stars are treated that lets them away with stuff?
Well, yeah, they're so far up the tower from where I was. I mean, I was local and regional, so I'm playing in the Championship. They are Premier League. They are in the Premiership.
And they can do no wrong.
And a lot of them, I don't think it's so bad now. After Savile, you would have thought the BBC would have learned some very, very important lessons. It's not just the BBC. It's happened to other networks, these scandals.
ITV, Philip Schofield.
Yeah, and you know, Philip gets what he wants because he's good for the ratings. We've got to keep the star happy. I think there's less of that now. But the trouble with the BBC is it's so big. It's like the NHS. It's impossible to manage, I think, in many ways. You need to be so strong if you are leading the BBC or the NHS.
Do you miss the BBC? Do you miss being there?
No, not now. And I'll tell you why. When I got axed from the BBC...
Which was crazy because your ratings were brilliant and you were incredibly popular.
Yeah. And I did 3 shows a week that were networked to about 14 radio stations. I loved doing what I did at the BBC. I felt privileged to have the gig. However, I said to a colleague there, they said, do you miss it? I said, no, because it's a party I don't want to be at anymore. You know, the party guests have changed. It's not the same BBC that I wanted to work for. And everyone I've spoken to, ex-BBC, they all say the same thing. I did a Blue Peter Day yesterday. I remember telling you about it.
Yes.
One of the original editors there, and he got the ratings up, and then guess what? The BBC got rid of him. So everyone I meet in the BBC who's not there anymore, they've usually come to a sorry end.
It was interesting because last week it was announced that 2,000 jobs are going to go. They're trying to shrink their budget. What do you make of that?
Well, they do need to they do need to not downsize but work smarter, and this is all about. And I've given you this this comparison before. NHS, BBC. Doesn't matter how much money you give them. It's all in the management. You need the BBC to be restructured because the BBC. That BBC's 1920s, 1930s. You can't manage it like that
And is there waste? Did you witness waste?
Yes, I witnessed loads and loads and loads of waste, even at local radio level. I just thought it was awful, the money that was being spent on that kind of stuff.
We love Alex Dyke, and I'm so glad he's